fam. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Tip-Off, the show that sets the stage for the most important news, daily fantasy plays, and bets on tonight's 8-game NBA slate, 14-game MLB slate. I am your host, Kayla Knierim. Joining me today, we've got Eric Lindquist and Chris Spags. Guys, how we doing?
Feeling good, feeling excited. Eric did the run sheet today, so anything that goes poorly on the show, I now can completely pass the buck. So these are the times I thrive. In addition to actually getting a Top Shot pack today that I'm going to wait for and hope doesn't pop up during the show. But it made Eric mad too. So everything is coming up my way after sacrificing myself at the altar of MLB content for the last hour.
I found out just now as I pulled it up because I was like right on the brink. I was like within 10K on the NBA Top Shot list. It looks like I'm going to get a pack. Stay tuned throughout the show.
We'll be on the edge of our seats.
I know. It's exciting for me. It's about me, really.
Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for countless hours of content on the NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, and every other sport that's in season. Really quick, we want to talk to you about our sponsor, No House Advantage, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to win real cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. The best part is you can join for free today. Just download the No House Advantage app and use promo code Awesemo to receive a first match deposit bonus of up to $20. Be your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. We had a big weekend, draft, Kentucky Derby, MLB, NBA, full of action. Guys, with the Raptors' requirements to take down tournaments across the industry on Sunday, did you have them? Are you having a case of the Mondays as a result? Eric, we'll start with you.
A little bit of the case of the Mondays. I had a really good NHL day on Saturday. I had a sweat for 10K for the main event that they had going there. Ended up getting third, which was nice. Ended up being a good weekend. Thank God the Kings scored one goal in that game to knock the complete game shutout.
You're welcome.
Out of it. Yeah, you still lost 6-1. So don't go bragging too much. But
thank you. 6-2.
Yeah, it was fun because so some of these Saturdays I kind of like take off from NBA, MLB, and other stuff. But I kind of played a little combination of everything. I had the afternoon off and ended up playing a lot of NHL, and it ended up being a blast. And so I had that. Horse racing didn't go well, and it was even more frustrating because my mom, who knows nothing about sports betting, knows nothing about anything, won $300 because she's like, I'll just take Bob Baffert's horse. And I'm like, that's the way we all should have been playing the Kentucky Derby. So good for my mom, I guess.
Taking Bob Baffert's horse is like taking the best car in NASCAR, and that seems to have been proven once again this weekend. And for me, I was honestly had a pretty decent weekend. Actually ended up playing NBA DFS yesterday, because I usually take off Sundays. I do the inverse of what Eric does over the weekends. But I was home with my second vaccine. I know some people in the chat will be mad, but I'm making the choice I'm making for my life and the one that I need to do for those who care. I care about around downtown LA and really just living in downtown LA. But I had my second shot, felt like crap. Not really like as bad as some people have reported, but just it was a weird foggy haze where I played NBA DFS, and thanks to the boom bust tool, which is where I mentioned the other day, been doing well with that, having some good results. I ended up profiting yesterday because I had just enough Raptors, even though I did not prioritize them at all. The boom bust tool told me to play Siakam and Kyle Lowry with the field, actually a little bit more than the field. So had a good day, had my Michael Jordan flu game, courageously overcame all the things that I've done. So that's really what I think people look to for me on the show is continue thriving in the sunlight. And I did that this weekend.
You had the Jordan flu game of sports betting. That's so
by
great.
Profiting $10.
Oh, that's too good.
Thank you for that inspiration on this Monday, Spags.
That's what I'm here for.
We're going to take it with us this week. All right, let's jump into our NBA news. LeBron James is out tonight for the Lakers after re-aggravating his ankle injury, and Dennis Schroeder will be out for another 10 to 14 days for health and safety protocols. With all the minutes in production now opened up for the Lakers, are there any priorities from the purple and gold for you tonight, Spags?
Yeah, I think Alex Caruso has to be a priority today. He's really the one that jumps out. Minimum salary on Draftkings, about a 50% chance of booming today, according to the Awesemo's boom bust tool. That number is going to probably move around a little bit here, but you're talking 50 to 60% chance of him getting 5x plus 10 on his salary. And that on this slate, I think is enough to go to where there isn't anybody else minimum salary. I feel like can get close to there. They can build around Caruso, not 100% guy to me, because there are some ways that you could just see other guys produce a little more around him, maybe more I was going to say more playmaking for Kyle Kuzma. I don't think that's going to happen, but theoretically, if he has 4 assists instead of his usual 1 or 2, that does count as more playmaking. Anthony Davis being more productive on his own, getting his own shot. There are some ways Caruso doesn't have an outlier day, but I do think he's going to have a day-to-day where it seems like he's going to be an important part of the overall lineup construction. So that's the main thing I'm looking at. I think Caruso becoming, if not unfadable, pretty close to unfadable for a large portion of your lineups.
Kyle Kuzma. I don't know if there's a player that's burned me more times trying to force that guy into lineups than Kyle Kuzma. I don't know if there's a guy who's gone off as many times as I fade him as Kyle Kuzma. I don't even know what I'm going to do with Kyle Kuzma yet, but all I know is I hate the guy. So it's not going to be good either way. I think right now I'm leaning towards rostering him. Anthony Davis on a back-to-back as well. I mean, he's been back here for a little bit, but there's definitely that price tag has come down to an intriguing spot over on DraftKings where I think I still have to get to a little bit of him over there at 5,200. It just looks so appealing. As you said, Alex Caruso, when he's not the number 1 DFS player in the entire world, he plays for the Lakers and he does pretty darn well in his minutes, 26 minutes, 28 minutes when he doesn't have LeBron on the floor there. You got to think that helps the profile for him a little bit. Played decently well yesterday. Not that, the recency bias really matters here, but coming in as the highest owned player on the slate at 3K, I think that's just kind of a result of how many studs there are to be paying up for on this slate. And it doesn't feel great that he's at a point guard position, but you can play him over at shooting guard over on DraftKings. So that's a big plus.
All right. The Pistons remain shorthanded as well as cheap across the industry with a $6,300 Isaiah Stewart, the most expensive play from either site. Eric, are there any pieces from this time that stick out to you the most?
I think it kind of depends on which site you're looking at. Josh Jackson is coming in as the highest owned player over on FanDuel right now, which again, you want to talk about terrifying. That is terrifying. 5,200, that dude, never get him right either. So maybe this is a day I should be playing a little bit lighter because we're playing Eric's greatest hits, but the opposite. It's like everybody that I don't enjoy rostering. But again, it's kind of just a process of this entire slate. You got to be taking shots on some of these guys. Frank Jackson went completely nuts the other night, sitting at 4,700 on DraftKings, able to play him at shooting guard there as well. But really kind of more intriguing to me over at 4,200 on FanDuel. There are so many point guards to be paying for up and down the entire spectrum, but I think 4,200 for him really kind of sticks out. We've seen the kind of upside that can exist there. Also, I had no idea that he was only 22 years old because I thought he was around forever. I was watching that Detroit game. I thought he was like 28, 29. I feel like he had been with New Orleans forever. I guess it was just like 2 years, but 22 years old, can still keep getting better. Frank Jackson, a priority for me on FanDuel.
Frank Jackson's been gunning a little more off the bench recently. And I guess one issue that is sort of important to me because I don't have the most confidence in this guy at this point, but Josh Jackson's minutes, I think, are greatly affected by if Hamidou Diallo is going to be in or not. And that wasn't the case the other day where Jackson still lost run, I think, more so to Frank Jackson in that spot. But you basically have Josh Jackson, Frank Jackson, and Hamidou Diallo competing for the same run of minutes. And I think it gets a little easier to choose one or the other of between the Jackson two there if you are going to get Hamidou Diallo out. So that's something I would watch out for. But the net result really of all this stuff with Detroit is that they just have too many guys available, I think, to feel confident about any of them. Like Sadiq Bey, I imagine will have around 15% of today, maybe a little bit more than that, but that's going to be under the field. I think Josh Jackson will have around 20% of, but I don't have the most confidence there for the reasons I mentioned. And I think that's still going to be significantly under the field on DraftKings. I think to me, really the approach for Detroit is I might just have max 2 out of the team and just get enough of these guys in some of every lineup and not get overwhelmingly exposed to the entirety of the team, because like an Isaiah Stewart's a good tournament pivot when he's 10% owned and a guy like Jokic is 50% owned. Not the case when he's going to be owned by a fifth of the field or even more on FanDuel. I think Detroit, really, they've been priced up enough where I don't trust these guys. The rotation still has enough bodies in there with 10 guys expected to get minutes that I think the confidence levels aren't the highest. So get some exposure, but definitely to me, less than the field on pretty much every single guy.
The Bulls could have a bunch of usage and front court minutes open up should Nikola Vucevic be out for a second consecutive game. Spags, which Bulls would you be looking at rostering the most in the event that he misses?
So I think we saw it last game with Thaddeus Young getting a lot of run was an important part of that equation. That to me becomes a much more secure play. He's a guy who on the year has been averaging 1.2 fantasy points per minute. Definitely gets easier for him to see the court time he needs to have an outlier day when you get Vucevic out. Also, Daniel Tice starting, I think, would gain in some appeal. He looks actually playable to me right now on the assumption that Vooch is going to be playing, and certainly a guy that gets just more opportunity there if not having Vooch in. So it's tough though because they are going to be going against Philadelphia. There are certainly some ways this game can go weird just at Philadelphia. sometimes will beat a team into submission. I don't know if that's the case on a back-to-back, and honestly, wouldn't be shocking if we saw some Philly guys get ruled out for me here. I think it's something to keep in mind, especially if Vooch gets ruled out. It could be the trickle-down effect of then Philly going, well, screw it, let's not play Simmons and Harrison and Embiid because who cares at this point? So something to watch out for, but I think on just talking about the Vooch side of the equation, if Vooch is out, I think going heavy to Thad Young and Daniel Tice would be the move.
Yeah, that Philly thing is interesting because there was an overtime game, obviously, but nobody really got to like a crazy amount of minutes. 34 tapped out for Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Tobias Harris ended up getting the most at 36, but that's still basically like a regular game for most starters in the NBA. So it's not a situation where I'm overly analyzing Philadelphia not being at full strength here today. But either way, I think that looking at this Vooch trickle-down effect, as you were saying, Thaddeus Young, looking over at popcornmachine.net, seeing a little bit of what these runs were without him last game, 29 minutes for Daniel Tice, decent rotations. He ended up closing that game too, even though he didn't have any production in that last stint. Thaddeus Young, 33 minutes. He's kind of the main benefactor, it looks like. But Daniel Tice, we have seen a ceiling from, so I think I'd probably be about equal in terms of my interest on both of them. And then Kobe White and Patrick Williams are kind of my other two pieces that I think see a little bit of a usage bump there. Obviously no Zach LaVine either in this situation. So I like Kobe White just for a pure usage standpoint. Not great to be getting Ben Simmons defense. Again, not many individual defenders we have to tap in, but I think he would be one of them. But Patrick Williams, super, super cheap over on Fanduel. I've been kind of taking shots there constantly, 3,800. I think there's some viability to going there at low 30s minutes.
Nerlens Noel is questionable for the Knicks after turning his ankle on Sunday, which could make this officially Taj Gibson chalk day. Eric, how much would be too much of Gibson in the event that Noel does indeed sit?
This whole thing just freaks me out. I really hope, for whatever reason, Nerlens Noel, please play. Like, normally I'm cheering to get these 3,100 and 3K dudes in, but I am not excited because I think Taj Gibson, this can go sideways. 0.79 DraftKings points per minute on the entire year. Not the best fantasy producer. I don't know what those minutes would look like. We did see times earlier in the season, like a month and a half ago when Nerlens Noel was also out, where Taj Gibson did get elevated to low 30s minutes, but there were also certain games where he was playing low 20s minutes. It was very variable, and trying to go through those box scores last night was just kind of a nightmare because you just never know what you're going to get. There's some crazy eruption spots for Taj Gibson. There's also many times where he goes out there and puts up 15 and 26 minutes. So I'm not excited if we were to get Nerlens Noel out. That's kind of what I'm expecting is going to happen, though. I think Nerlens Noel becomes a decent enough play over on FanDuel and DraftKings, 5,100 over on both sites. He's had usage in single digits for like a majority of his games going out here, but just rebounding it at a high clip. I really think, though, Taj Gibson, you have to consider him over on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, I still think I would have just about none because you look at the top end of power forward today, Julius Randle, Anthony Davis, without LeBron James, Domantas Sabonis possibly without Brogdon, and then Zion Williamson and only 9K, kind of a result of all the blowouts they've been in. I want to be paying up at power forward, and I don't want to waste a spot on a 3,900 Taj Gibson over there.
So the thing with me with Taj Gibson is that I think he has to play a lot of runs. So two things jump out. The last game when you saw Nerlens Noel go out, Taj Gibson played then 12 straight minutes, including the turnover between the quarters where he was playing the third quarter, played through the fourth, and then basically played until the game was out of hand. And then they went to Norvel Pell. I think the assumption for me would be that Taj Gibson is going to play a lot of minutes today just because you have a matchup against Memphis. Maybe they decide to go a different direction. If you went small, that is sort of a logical way to counter Jonas Valanciunas. But the issue is that the Knicks also don't shoot that well. So if you don't have a center and going against Jonas Valanciunas, he's going to just grab every rebound and kill you that way. So I think there's some concern for me that would be how it goes. And that really just leads me to believe that Taj Gibson gets a lot of run here, unless you see it Norvel Pell starting. And I don't think that's going to be the case. Taj, to me, getting 30 minutes, is he going to be productive? His minutes are kind of like PJ Tucker minutes, where he's only a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy on the year. Is not going to do a whole lot. The rebound rate for him, not the best, but still a 15% rebound rate. I think if you put him on the court for 30 minutes, I do think he probably double-digit rebounds. And I think that's what I'm targeting here. So Taj Gibson, to me, not quite as good of a play as Alex Caruso, who I think is an important part of just the overall lineup construction. Because Taj Gibson is power forward center on DraftKings and 3,100, I think I'll get there more just because I think they have to play in big minutes, just because I don't see how you don't at this point.
Moving right on into our one-on-one. In these battles between stars, which player would you rather have in NBA DFS or prop bets tonight? My fave, we've got Russell Westbrook and Steph Curry are the talk of the DFS industry tonight, as both point guards are in standout spots tonight. While it's impossible to imagine fading one, Spags, which stud will you be prioritizing in your lineup, Russ or Steph?
So I think for me right now, it does look like a Russ slate. Going against Indiana, they've been playing faster. There's also a decent possibility we don't see Malcolm Brogdon out there. He's questionable right now, missed last game or was out of last game. And then the spot against Westbrook, I think playing a faster pace Indiana team with a 246 combined total in this game, that is ungodly high in the spot. I think really everything lends itself well to Westbrook too, where even if you have Sabonis in again, as the expectation is going to be, it's not like Sabonis is really going to prevent Russ from grabbing rebounds at the point of attack. He's still going to get all those things. Not going to defend the rim that well, not as well as it normally would be with Miles Turner in the middle. So I think there's a lot of reasons here that this is kind of a perfect Russ spot. Steph too, I have no issue with, but Westbrook, I think in this situation, hard for me to see him failing, hard for me to see him not having a big ceiling. And I think there are some slates, including over the weekend, where Westbrook on a 10-game slate where he's 11K in an adverse matchup. I think to me, that's a spot where you don't want to go crazy on him. You just kind of want to be with the field. This spot here in a really good situation with a gigantic total, you have to think Russ, this game is going to be playing with pace. And I think that's a spot where I find it hard to believe Russ fails. And I think obviously he's got the tournament upside to win it all.
I love Russ Westbrook today. I absolutely love him. There's nothing you can poke at. I've been saying, I think for multiple weeks now, that I just think 11K is too cheap for Russell Westbrook. And I've been over the field every single slate significantly. And that being said, I am terrified because I think I'm probably going to be higher on Steph Curry today. And here's why. I was going through a lot of numbers yesterday, trying to figure out exactly what the priority was going to be between them, because they're both at elevated, specifically on Draftkings. I think 9,700 gives you enough of a discount on Fanduel that it's not terribly hard. But in 725 minutes with Kelly Oubre off the floor this season, somehow Steph Curry jumps up from about 1.5 to 1.68 Draftkings points per minute. That is a significant sample. And I know he's a shooting dependent guy, but that just tells you the spike in usage that he's going to receive in this spot, the spike that he's going to have in opportunity. The assist rate goes up significantly. There are so many things that I didn't expect to happen. And Kelly Oubre has basically been a non-factor for the Golden State Warriors this year. But I just thought that was very interesting, that taking him off the floor is just a net positive, because you're getting minutes to a guy like Toscano Anderson, who's just not a high usage guy. 1.68 is a gigantic number for a Warriors team that's currently in the 9 hole, that's going to be pushing as hard as they can to get into this play-in game. I don't know if the field is going to be basically on DraftKings specifically double on Russell Westbrook. I'm going to go double on Steph Curry, kind of flip-flop their ownership. And I think Steph Curry's just a much, much better play than the public is perceiving him to be right now.
I respectfully disagree.
Well, I can't be right about everything. I love Russell Westbrook today, but I will say, I think Steph Curry, it's just surprising to me that he was as good of a play as what he jumped out to be, because I didn't expect that kind of a jump. 1.68 would basically put him at number 2 in the entire NBA behind Giannis in points per minute.
I'm just giving you a hard time. You've done your homework, Eric. I respect it.
I have my moments.
Swaggy P loves Russ every day, and so do I. That's just where we're at.
Swaggy P. We could talk about Swaggy P all day. I want to talk about D'Angelo Russell and Swaggy P. That whole thing is just
Swaggy P in the chat. Sorry, I should have clarified.
Oh, different. Sorry.
But also that Swaggy P, maybe. I don't know.
Isn't that Nick Young? That's what I was getting at.
I think that's where you got the name from.
Where's Nick Young?
I presume it's not actually Nick Young hanging out playing some DFS, but maybe. I'd like to believe.
I don't think he's working right now, is he?
That's true. He's got some downtime.
Okay,
true.
There's that.
You're true. Let's get to our next one. Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson get a pace-up spot at home versus the Warriors, making them intriguing spend-up options tonight. Eric, who are you targeting the most between this battle of teammates, Ingram or Williamson?
I love them both as well today. I think they both make intriguing spend-ups, but Zion Williamson, 10K and 9K. A lot of this price tag change for him, coming down a little bit, has been a result of some blowouts that they've been in recently. 14-point win against the Thunder. I guess it was closer against Denver, but 17 points. They just ran Los Angeles out of the gym. He didn't get that last rotation. They beat the Magic by 25. It seems like every other game they have an absolute blowout, which has kind of suppressed his price tag down to 9K over on FanDuel. He is my priority over there. I think he will be my highest owned power forward without question. I do have to say, though, at small forward, if you don't have LeBron, well, we don't have LeBron now, but Michael Porter Jr. at 8,200, that's a big number to be paying. You are getting a huge discount over on FanDuel at 7,400 going that direction and prioritizing Ingram. Over on DraftKings, it becomes much more interesting. Neither of them really profile that well over there, but I think if I'm taking tournament shots on one, I still got to take the ceiling of Zion. The guy can just blow up. I think there's really 4 elite power forwards to be spending up on this slate. I'm going to try to mix and match with them. If I'm going to be paying down for Caruso, if we get Taj Gibson, and God forbid I'm forced to bite that bullet, I'm going to be paying up a lot at power forward and center. You can play 4 of them, and Zion will be a priority for me on both sites.
I think the pricing looks better for both guys on FanDuel than it does on DraftKings. And I think, to me, the reason that I would go to Brandon Ingram over Zion on DraftKings is just because I think Ingram's price point is going to work better for just, building the kind of lineups that I want to build, getting a few studs in there, and then getting guys like Ingram in and hoping they can capture a ceiling day. But Zion at $10,000 on DK, like, he certainly can have some upside there. I'm sure I'll have, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10% of him today. But Ingram's going to be higher owned on DraftKings, closer to 10%. And I think that's where I'll be, just because Ingram's going to make the lineups work better. So that's sort of the main reason. Zion, hard to argue the ceiling on any game, especially given the fact that he is going to be facing Washington. You're also getting Steven Adams back in the mix today, or at least supposed to be getting him back in. I think that's probably a better for a guy like Zion too, who doesn't get the most rebounds overall. And Adams is a good rebounder, but he's also a guy who does defer on rebounds more than Willy Hernangomez does, where he's just trying to grab everything he can while he's out there. Adams just kind of boxes out other guys, so guys like Zion, Ingram can get their boards and get their stats up. And I think that, to me, is overall an additive to Zion. So no issue with either guy, but Ingram, the price point, I think, is going to be a little more appealing and a little more functional with just building logically and getting guys like Russ and Steph Curry into the mix.
And last but not least, there's an abundance of power forwards to pay up for on this slate. 2 of the tops are Domantas Sabonis, coming off a ridiculous first half triple-double, and Julius Randle, who might see some elevated rebound opportunities with Nerlens Noel questionable. So Spags, which big man are you most interested in tonight, Sabonis or Randle?
It's tough because neither guy, to me, projects fantastically in terms of a median projection, which is sort of crazy given the situations they're both in, with Randall being out without really 2 of his centers now. If Noel's going to be out and Mitchell Robinson also out, obviously. But Sabonis too, the thing is, for me, it's hard to predict and hard to project, is that if Brogdon's in, I don't think you're going to see the same ceiling you saw the other day. To me, that Sabonis day, in addition to him just playing more minutes that I think we would have expected coming off of injury, was the fact that Brogdon wasn't in. So he just did more of everything and did more of everything fast. I think if you get Brogdon out, Sabonis is to me, a clear cut ahead of where Julius Randle is. But I think given the current situation where Brogdon could play, and then you have Brogdon, LeVert, and Sabonis, I think I might be more inclined to go to Randle, because there are some ways, to me, where maybe Memphis decides to put Taj Gibson on the bench and you get Randle at 5. And you have him at 5, basically playing point guard and center, getting the upside of what he does as a playmaker, in addition to rebounding more. And that could be something that's tough to avoid. So I think if Brogdon's in, it would be Randle for me. If Brogdon's out, it would be Sabonis.
Eric.
Oh, I guess I have to talk now. That's how this works.
Give us your side?
Yeah, he was
Honestly,
wowed by
how
great my take was, I think.
No, I was reading stats on we're not even going to bring that up. That was really not my finest moment in the history of the show, for sure. I was just staring into the void. It wasn't the Sunday Scaries. It was the morning Mondays. I don't know what it's called. What would it be? It's just Monday. It's freaking Monday.
It's Monday. It's a Monday. Yes.
There we go. All right. Yeah, no, I think I'm going to be prioritizing Domantas Sabonis either way. The guy completely has gone nuts in multiple first quarters, second quarters, gets out of the gate so hot. Basically, he is soup and sandwich. Sorry, Josh Engleman, letting it be known for his horsey on Sunday, who got dead last. It was pretty, or on Saturday, it was brutal. But either way, I like going to Sabonis. This game environment is just outrageous. It's very rare you see a total 245 and a half, 246. I mean, that's just kind of a ridiculous number to be looking at. You have the possibility of getting no Brogdon there too. I mean, it's just such a smash spot for Sabonis. If he can get it going early, you could be looking at a big number. I think Julius Randle, the Knicks kind of suppress pace as it is. They kind of do it to themselves. Not saying Julius Randle can't go for a ceiling game, and I think he's going to project out much better on FanDuel, where he's still underneath 10K there, and you have the rebound rate that's going to spike up a little bit with Noel, who basically is out there just to get boards. And you take him off the floor and put Taj Gibson in. That's definitely a net plus for Julius Randle. But I think regardless, Domantas Sabonis is cheaper. He's $200 less over on FanDuel. I think he's the priority over there. And then over on FanDuel, where you're also getting Sabonis for $200 cheaper, for $500 cheaper, sign me up for him.
All right, that's going to do it for our one-on-one. Now we're going to head to the Diamond for some MLB props tonight. Let's check out some of the top bets and plays on tonight's MLB DFS slate. Which of these top 5 odds getters on OddsShopper do you think is the best overall bet to hit a home run tonight? We've got Corey Seager plus 230, Javier Baez plus 250, Pete Alonso plus 310, Kyle Seager plus 320, and AJ Pollock plus 340. Spags, we'll start with you.
So I think for me, this is one where it's worth pointing out the weather in MLB is going to be a little weird today, where the Phillies game, I think Alex Awesemo was expecting earlier on the deeper dive show for MLB that we just did right before this one. He was expecting the Phillies game not to go off and thinking that this Cubs game does go off, but in a delay, but still some weather risk there that I might be inclined just to avoid the Dodgers guys just entirely. Obviously on a prop bet, it doesn't matter quite as much as on a DFS slate because the prop's going to get voided either way. But I think, if you were to play this game straight, I think the best prop is probably going to be Corey Seager playing against Kyle Hendricks, a guy who does give up a pretty good home run rate. The numbers for him getting worse by the year, up to a 5% home run rate. But I think, accounting for the weather, I would just take Pete Alonso just because he's the only guy here who should be playing, with a fair degree of certainty today. So obviously your mileage may vary here, but I think Corey Seager would be the best play, not accounting for weather, and Pete Alonso when you do account for the fact that Dodgers game may not go.
287 ISO right now so far for Corey Seager. Yeah, sign me up for him. I know that it's sitting at a plus 230 number. That's not nearly as intriguing, but wind blowing out, you kind of knew instantly seeing two Dodgers sitting in the top end there that the wind was going to be blowing out in Wrigley when you looked at that. Obviously, there is some rain risk, but there's absolutely no risk when a game doesn't go. You end up cashing that prop or getting your money back. Regardless on the situation. Like you don't have to worry too much about the weather like you do from a DFS aspect. So I do like betting Corey Seager there at plus 230. I find it very fascinating. AJ Pollock goes off, hits 2 home runs yesterday, now faces a righty. And out of the 7 hole where he's projected still to be is plus 340. Don't bet him. Just I know it's less money, but go the Corey Seager route.
And now for biggest arm, which of these top 4 odds getters on OddsShopper do you think is the best strikeouts over bet tonight? Is there a good under bet that you like? We've got Tyler Glasnow, 7.5 strikeouts, Walker Buehler, 6.5, Frankie Montas, 5.5, Kenta Maeda, 5.5, and German Marquez, 5.5, Eric.
Yeah, this was a bummer because this was going to be Shohei Ohtani for me, and he ends up getting scratched here. It's going to be Jose Quintana now pitching for the Angels. So I'm going to go the Tyler Glasnow route, right around 13.5 strikeouts per 9 right now, facing an Angels lineup that traditionally doesn't have a ton of strikeouts in it, but going forward here the last year or so, it's been up a little bit. So I know that it doesn't feel like the greatest matchup to be targeting here in LA today, but or technically Anaheim. It's still so weird to me that they're called the LA Angels because they are nowhere close to us, but I like going the Tyler Glasnow route.
The LA Angels of Anaheim, certainly a tough team to go against for the most part, as Greg mentioned. As Eric mentioned, that hasn't happened in so long. You know what? Honestly, my excuse for this one is that I do all my MLB shows with Greg, so that's the issue that I'm going to point to first and foremost.
Okay, Spags.
I'm on hour number 3 of content for the day, and I have to admit the edges get a little narrow this time of the day. Eric just looks so sad. Oh, I can't. Oh, well, I'm not doing the voice though, so that's what matters. The point being for me,
just do the voice. You want to. Just if you're going to lean into it, if you're going to be an asshole, just be an asshole the whole way, okay? Go ahead. No, go ahead. Do it. Do it, you jack. Come on.
My heart's not in it.
Yes, it is. You are filled with vitriol. I'm about to do a pirate voice, so you can front load it with my voice. Go ahead.
He's not lying.
I don't have it in me. My heart.
Oh, go ahead. No, this is great, especially now that I know we're both double vaxxed. I can come down, find you in the middle. We could MMA this thing out. I don't want to do that at all. You're a nice human.
Before I can be beaten up by anybody on the internet.
Nah, I would
say Kenta Maeda is my pick here.
Okay.
And here's part of the logic.
You picked a twin. That was a good decision. See,
yes.
Now we can be redeemed.
Honestly would have picked a twin anyway. I'm not trying to appease you here. I am trying to appease the gods of regression to the mean. And I know people, as I was talking about, and this is part of what was screwing my brain up, is that on the morning show, the morning strategy show for MLB, Greg was like, oh, Kenta Maeda has been really bad this year. I think he's losing it. And I just don't believe it with Kenta Maeda. I think we're looking at very small sample size ball and things that are going to regress to where they're supposed to be. And the thing that jumps out over the last season, Maeda actually has made stark improvements to his strikeout rate, to his swinging strike rate, going from 15% to 16%, going from a 37% chase rate to a 40% chase rate. Like, I think the numbers for this year are an aberration. And if you're getting him at that mark right now, I think you're getting him for this season's numbers, where you can take the arm talent and Glasnow, much more of a blowaway pitcher. But I do think Maeda, as the Gregs of the world, not the Erics of the world, will point to, apparently not playing well this year, but over the longer term sample size, Maeda's been a great strikeout guy. Today he faces a Texas lineup that's got 7 guys that strike out above league average, a 27% aggregate K rate. So I like the spot for Maeda. And I think too, some of these props, when a guy's been playing poorly, you expect them to regress to where they were. I think the prop line just becomes more appealing because like Maeda's going to have to have a lot of strikeouts, obviously, to get back to where he was over the last couple of years. So that's what I'm looking at for Maeda. And I think that prop is too low for a guy of his arm talent.
We are fiery on this Monday.
Oof. I'm honestly I am the deadest for shows today than I've been in a long time. I don't know if it's just flu shot related, me also eating less carbs. There's a lot of things coming together today where I am throwing my 50-mile-per-hour fastballs, just hoping to get through the game.
Oh man.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Don't you worry.
It's a team effort. That's what matters.
Team. Yes. Let's build each other up and limp across the finish line.
Yeah, that's what we're doing here. Go ahead, Kayla.
Let's head back to the NBA, shall we?
There we go.
It's time for No House Advantages prop or not. Here are some of No House Advantages props of the day for key players. Do you guys like the over or under on them, and how many points would you assign? First up, we've got Michael Porter Jr., 12.5 points plus assists. Eric.
I would be remiss if I didn't start off with Michael Porter Jr., considering he is the best bet over on NHA today. He is the guy that you need to be having in your 10-point confidence slot. I will say that flat out. 12.5 points plus assists is an accidental misprice. Like there's no way on planet Earth that from what we've seen from Michael Porter Jr. I mean, it is like, I know that Alex has him right around 23.1. I have him at 27.3. I am way higher on this prop even than that. I mean, he's at a 99% confidence level there, 96.44 sitting on Alex's projections. I mean, this is just such a good spot to be targeting a 10-pointer. I think if you put anything else up there, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, this is one of those where, honestly, sometimes in House Advantage, we can point to the line and go like, oh, yeah, this makes sense because they're not accounting for this, or this line might have made a few days ago when this situation hadn't fully materialized. And I think sometimes in No House Advantage, they just throw in lines like this for kicks where they're just like, hey, let's give the people who are paying attention an easy one. And I would agree, this is very much an easy one. I have him scoring over 23 regular points today, real life points today. I think it's a prop that is clearly a misprice, and I think is just sort of them seeing who's going to pay attention. So when they give you charity, when DK or Fanduel gives you charity and a minimum price player who ends up playing, 30 minutes, you got to play those guys. It's even going to No House Advantage where, yeah, maybe Michael Porter Jr. somehow fails this. I don't know what that would be, but it's such a high probability outcome that it pretty much should be and has to be your 10 or at least 9-pointer today.
Kevin Huerter, 22.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. Spags.
Yeah, this is one that I don't love, and I guess I didn't look at the Awesemo number for it, so I might be missing something, but I think to me, this sort of depends on if you get Bogdanovic out, maybe the over becomes more appealing, but for me right now, I'd say this is an under. I know the spot against Portland's going to be a pretty good one, but I think to me, it's going to benefit the guys who are going to be getting more usage, the Trae Youngs, to a lesser extent, the John Collinses and Bogdanovic's of the world, where Huerter now, he's mostly getting squeezed by having Trae back in the mix, as well as potentially having Bogdan in there and then having Collins in there as well, where there's an upside for him for sure. But I think to me, a middle confidence under, I'd give it a 4 or 5-pointer.
See, I was trying to give you 2 50-mile-an-hour fastballs. See, this is me giving you the gift. I mean, these are gifts up top. I'm not trying to throw you off by any means. Michael Porter Jr., the best over, the best under on the board. Kevin Huerter, you're going to get Bogdanovic more than likely back in. I'm not positive on that, but you for sure have Trae Young back there. Huerter, not going to be necessarily playing his full allotment of minutes here yet, but points plus rebounds plus assists, 22.5 in his current situation is not appeasing whatsoever. That's another high confidence slot to kind of be targeting today.
And last but not least, we've got Brandon Ingram, 1.5 3-pointers made. Eric.
So I'm going to be taking the over on Brandon Ingram pretty much every time. I really do like targeting these 3-point props in good game environments, or taking the unders on guys who don't shoot that many. We've talked about Giannis multiple times on this show where I'm on the under of 1.5 pretty much every single time that number is available, because you're basically fading him going 2 for 3 from 3. Today, you're going to see an abundance of 3-point opportunities from Ingram. You're looking at a great game environment. The Golden State Warriors playing 4th up in pace in the entire NBA this season. The total reflects that, sitting well above 235 there. I just like targeting the over for somebody who's going to be out there, going to be chucking. Definitely an over for me.
Yeah, I would take the over here too. To me, it's not a super obvious one, but you have Ingram shooting 6.2 3-pointers per game this year. He's going against a Golden State team that really doesn't do anything meaningful. They don't give up less 3-pointers. They don't really squeeze out 3-pointers that well, giving up 37% shooting from deep. That's pretty much average as well. So you have an average team in a potentially high scoring game defensively going against a guy in Ingram who gets up 6 shots per game from deep. I feel like that is a prop I don't mind going to. I feel like I would find a bit more appealing on the prop betting market, because I think that's one. I know our boy Dr. Ben Rasa, has been doing pretty well with those 3-point props overall. But I think I know House Advantage still, one that you could have some degree of confidence in. And I think taking the over seems like a wise move, but to me, also a middle tier one, a 4 or 5-pointer.
Okay. And as always, friends, don't forget to play on No House Advantage, our sponsor, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to win real cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. The best part is you can join for free today. Just download the No House Advantage app and use promo code Awesemo to receive a deposit bonus of up to $20 for new signups. Be your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. We have a brand new segment here on the tip-off. We're going to get to it in just 1 second, but really fast, I have to address something in the chat that made me laugh. We are an all LA team today. We've got producer Jordan, who just moved to LA over the weekend. Spags, Eric, myself, we're all West Coast peeps. And someone in the chat goes, let's hope this doesn't happen. I want an earthquake to hit during the show. I bet Eric panics the most. Thoughts on that, guys?
What a jerk. That's not very nice. You're calling me a sensitive. I'm not sensitive, okay? I don't know.
Actually, I'm
something like that.
Quite certain I'm the one that would panic the most. So yeah, there's that.
I'm actually pretty good in a crisis, I think. I've had multiple times where it's like, look, like, stop being an idiot. Like, well, we're fine. I think for what it is that I'm somebody who like enjoys human interaction so much, and I'm very animated in that regard. But when something goes wrong, I kind of just like level out. I got to like be serious. And that's kind of the way that I am on a golf course, where it's like, you know, I chill out quite a bit because I just kind of go into a different level of focus. But for something like this, never focused, just all over the place.
Yeah, I don't, much to the detriment of my relationships and various other things in life, I don't experience many highs or lows. So I think I would very much have a cool hand Luke approach here, where I would just be like, what? I've actually seen myself on a Nest Cam because I have a Nest camera in my living room to watch the dogs when I'm not home. I've seen myself react to an earthquake before and handled it with great class, where I just sat up, looked around, confused, made sure it wasn't just that I was too high. And it was like, oh no, the walls are shaking. It's an earthquake. And then I just like kind of waited for it to go. I didn't even do any of the things you're supposed to do, like going into a doorway or whatever, but let's ignore that part. I would just sit here and go like, what? And that would be the end of it. So I think my reaction would not be noteworthy at all.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, the last one we had, I was very calm, but that's because it woke me up from my slumber and I was so confused. I was like,
you freaked out about a gas leak that was like 40 miles away from you and couldn't get over it for like 3 hours, even though completely unaffected to you.
First of all, I had no idea where the gas leak was. I figured if I was getting the alert, I was close enough to maybe be affected by it. And that's scary. That can kill you.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's terrifying. I think I would have just been lighting a match to be like, let's see if this is the end of it all. If I die in this moment, so be it.
Never a dull moment here out in California.
No.
Okay. We have a new segment, as I mentioned, called What You Know About Parlay. And I am going to step aside and let Eric read this because I'm just not going to do it the justice it deserves. So Eric, the floor is yours.
Well, we got to go into the Jeffrey Rush from Pirates of the
Hop
Caribbean.
aboard
So I
the
think
tip-off cruise ship. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was me. Oh, I thought it was Eric voice.
Hop aboard the tip-off cruise ship and let's sail into the sunset in search of gold. The Pirates code is known as parlay, which is also known as most sports bettors' favorite type of wager. With that in mind, matey, are there any parlays that tickle your fancy? To help us find some buried treasure tonight, I have one for you. It's plus 350 around the industry, wherever you're looking. Put the Dodgers, the Twins, and the over on DeMontis Sabonis 21.5 points. Plus 350. Our mateys.
This was Eric's idea, and now I see why.
I honestly have nothing to say for myself.
I will say
it was fun.
As a person here who has gotten some degree of esteem from our higher ups for coming up with bits left and right, really, which is just us being assholes on shows and then me beating it into the ground mercilessly. I have to say that I like the cut of the jib of this bit. I did not have the time to prep my own parlay for it because of the timing that we had today. But I will say the one thing that I'd like to see from Eric Moore to make this bit really pop is committing fully to the pirate theme, where if you came on tomorrow or the next show with full pirate attire and we're doing this, I think now we're starting to talk here in a way that makes sense for Mr. Money Time right here. So I think that's what I'm thinking. But just that's my feedback here, obviously on a live show.
This was a test, me mateys. Just taking a shot into the abyss, not trying to walk the plank.
Also, remember when like the internet was all about the talk like a pirate thing, and there's like International Talk Like a Pirate Day? Like I feel like Eric is just running it back here. Like hopefully there's been enough time here we can bring pirates back. And
you best start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one.
Tomorrow you're gonna have a bit on bacon. You're gonna have like all the cool
bacon is delicious.
2009.
What you know about parlay? It's great. These are good times. We're trying new things here on the tip off, trying to integrate new sports betting segments.
If you had a real life parrot and you brought this bit today, I would have been like, fuck, we got to do this bit every show now. I don't know what's Like, I'm amazed.
I think it would have been a little jarring to come in full pirate attire, like completely off the cuff. But also, if anybody at Awesemo were to do it, 100% I would be the guy that would be voted as the one who would do it.
Eric, you're an actor. You're supposed to dive into your character.
No.
I need full commitment.
Sure.
I think that was as committed as I could possibly get on a Monday afternoon.
That was pretty
good. I feel good about what we've done here for the most part.
Get yourself a case of scurvy and commit to the bit, Eric.
drink some terrible ale and just go to town. Oh.
I mean, Dr. Ross is putting on a lab coat and a stethoscope, so the least you could do is like get a hat and an eye patch.
Yeah, I'm a real piece of shit, that's me. Just
no,
not
it's
really.
It's not that you're a piece of shit. It's that you've exposed yourself as a landlubber is what you've done.
Do you want to go back and explain what you said? Because did people hear you okay? What was your parlay?
Dodgers, Twins.
Okay.
Dodgers, Twins, and Domantas Sabonis over 21.5. There are multiple sports books around the industry that shall not be named that you can go parlay those three lovely things together. I was getting plus 365. You can get up to around, I checked a couple of other books, just a little bit over plus 350. But Domantas Sabonis, when you get Brogdon off the floor, just jumps and spikes in usage. Coming out of the gate, super hot. I really like Domantas Sabonis in a total way over. It's just like, 246 is as big as we've seen all season long. 21.5 just seems really, really low for me going for Brogdon. So I like, or sorry, not for Brogdon, for Domantas Sabonis. So the over on 21.5, put it together with two nice minus 180 numbers that are sitting right around there for Dodgers and Twins. You've got plus 350 return. Absolutely love it. Buying into the Maeda narrative, definitely buying against Kyle Hendricks.
Also, one thing too that would have made it even funnier is if Eric had to explain the bet in regular talk with his still having the pirate outfit on and a parrot there, just trying to keep it from pecking at his face. There would have been a lot of pros of the pirate outfit. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I can say.
Oh, so you want a real pirate? I can't even do like a fake pirate or a digital pirate.
No, I want you to just commit to pirate lifestyle for the sake of content.
I'm gonna live underneath boards very soon. just underneath. Just throw salt water at me during the show. My fiance come in with a bucket. It'll be great.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
The pirate life for me. Love it. Eric, thank you for bringing us back to life today. That was a fun one. I hope we see what you know about parlay again soon.
Maybe. What you know about parlay. It's great. It's great. It's fun. These are good times. Again, Monday, this is why we do this. It's to try out new things. And also, you never know what's going to resonate with the people. Oh, because like this has kind of worked in the past year. And now this is like a real thing that we do every day, especially when Eric's not on the show. Ha ha ha.
See, I've actually been letting that rest for a little bit recently. And people are putting in requests and I'm like, I'm letting it breathe.
Okay. Letting it breathe because we exploded chat that day. That was outrageous.
I think
honestly,
we have a show tomorrow, Eric, so maybe it comes back then. I don't know. Hard to say.
Oh, God, I forgot about that. All right, well, here we go. Money time is now make fun of Eric time. That's great.
We are off the rails today, people.
It's the goal.
Let's try to get back on with a segment we're all familiar with here. Good dog, bad dog.
Fail.
Maybe.
Pause.
Bark,
bark,
no. Arf, arf. It's a
pirate
is
dog.
That my doggy over there.
It's obviously a pirate dog.
No. In real life, there is no such thing as a bad dog. And betting in DFS, there are a lot of underdogs who may have no chance in their game. So who's a good dog to target tonight and who's a bad one? Spags, let's start with your good dog.
I think the good dog to win outright would be Golden State going to New Orleans. New Orleans, a team that I think, as Eric talked about earlier in the show, a team playing for that play-in tournament. And I think they actually have a good shot to get there as opposed to New Orleans, who has kind of frittered away their opportunity with poor coaching and honestly just not handling Zion the right way, giving him the opportunity early in the year, letting him run things. I think a lot of things could point to New Orleans, whereas Golden State knows where their bread is buttered. And that is going to be giving Steph Curry the ball. That is going to be getting him a lot of shots. That is going to be Draymond agitating the hell out of anybody who's going to go against him on New Orleans side. So the end result of that for me would be that Golden State wins this one outright. So that'd be my good dog.
I think the difficult part about that bit that just happened is now how do people take me seriously just talking regular right after it? Like I'm about to speak intelligently about a bet that I like. And I just don't know how you can take me seriously. I honestly don't know, but I think my God, my good dog right now, I think it's going to be the Pacers. I know Washington's been playing really, really well here of late, but getting 4 points at home, I know possibly no Brogdon. Sabonis is a net minus on the defensive end, but offensively, I think that they have enough to stick along with Washington here. Again, it's a game with just a crazy total, but I think that with Karis LeVert, Domantas Sabonis, they have enough to hang with Washington here.
Oh, Eric, hit us with your bad dog. Sorry.
Oh, it's bad time. Bad dog time too. That's good to know. I don't see a lot that I think everything's pretty neutral for the most part on the board today. I'd say if I had to pick out one, I'd say the Bulls, just with the possibility of no Vooch. I think they would be a bad dog. Getting 6, that line's moved from 5 to 6. There seems to be quite a bit of sharp money coming in on the Sixer side, which makes a lot of sense. I know they're playing on a back-to-back, but they didn't even get a lot of their starters to major minutes against the Spurs. Maybe they didn't push them thinking that game was going to get out of hand. They were up big early in it. I believe they were up 17 in the first quarter. San Antonio just made a crazy push there to make it a game, take it into overtime. Sixers ended up winning there at the end there. But against Chicago, if you get no Vooch out there, I just have no idea how Chicago stays in it.
So I think I've got a spicy bad dog for today. I'm going to go with the Lakers as being a bad dog. And I think things for them are ebbing in the wrong direction, where you get LeBron back. He's going back out. You have Scherer now announced to be out 10 to 14 days for health protocol reasons. So he probably did get real COVID, not just close targeting or whatever, the close contacts, all that stuff. So that to me is the part of the Lakers that I don't like. I think they're going to get it together in time for the playoffs, but I think now we're getting close to it, where to me, I think this makes them a little more adrift, knowing that LeBron's going to be out for at least today, maybe a few more games, who knows. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to play guys like Alex Caruso and DFS, but it does mean to me that I think Denver can win this one. And Denver, to me, they're figuring out what they have to do with what they have left of their team, where Porter's stepping up, Jokic is stepping up, even guys like Campazzo are stepping up. On the Lakers side, I don't know who's stepping up, and it has not been AD yet. So I think they are a bad dog tonight.
All right, Spags, which player or game currently looks like a make or break spot to you on tonight's slate?
I think to me, it's going to be playing a healthy amount of Alex Caruso and Taj Gibson, and hoping that people having some degree of concern about them or fear of whatever chalk plays have blown up recently. I know people maybe not happy with Drew Eubanks yesterday, even though I think he was also a part of a day and the overall lineup construction that ended up being more profitable than not. And I think really taking these guys right now, 3K, 3,100, and hoping that they have the opportunity, obviously assuming that both are starting in Caruso, I think we can pretty much lock that in. Taj Gibson, we'll see. But I think if those guys start playing them, pretty heavily, I think relative to both guys, where 50% Caruso, 30% Taj Gibson, to me feels about right, just to open up everything else you're going to want to get to on this slate.
Yeah, that would be my answer too. So I'll go a different route. I've talked quite a bit about power forward today. I think on Fanduel specifically, seeing Isaiah Stewart up there, getting the most ownership. And then you have some massive ceilings in Zion, Julius Randle, Domantas Sabonis, even guys like Draymond Green, Robert Covington's 4,700 now. There's just so many different routes. Thaddeus Young could be a phenomenal play if you get Vooch out. There's just so many different ways to go at power forward. I think really kind of taking a stand on a couple of your favorites rather than trying to play absolutely everybody, even in 150 lineups, is going to be a make or break deal for me today. I think Zion is my priority. He's got the second most ownership out of the group, but I would rather go over the field than Stewart. And then Domantas Sabonis, I've talked about. I'm very bullish on in this spot, coming in right around 15% ownership. Really want to get over the field there. I think that kind of isolating out your favorite power forward plays on that site specifically in Draftkings as well, because of the ceilings that they have. And then Gibson, who's going to have to fill up a power forward spot for a lot of people should we get that news. That's going to be a huge make or break for me at the power forward position.
And finally, for fade of the day, is there one game, player, or team that you anticipate you'll have a lot less interest in than the rest of the public? Pirate Eric.
Oh, we're going to take a timeout, I think, from the pirate voice here for a minute. The voice it's like stuck in the back of my throat here. But rather than sounding like a cat with a hairball or something, these Detroit Pistons are going to be very difficult for me to break down. I think aside from Josh Jackson, who's getting just a crazy amount of ownership, has the most usage on the team, comes out and just chucks. So I feel pretty good about Josh Jackson, but Isaiah Stewart, especially on DraftKings where you have to play him at a center spot, I'm just a little bit lower. I'm not feeling very good about it. I was a little bit lighter on him the last two out. One time he burned me, one time he didn't. And I was on the right side of it last time out. But yeah, I really feel as though Isaiah Stewart is going to be a guy that I'm going to have the brakes on today, and that does not feel good.
Yeah, I think for me, it's actually going to be Josh Jackson on the same team just because he's going to be pretty highly owned. And I will have some Josh Jackson today, so it's not a full fade, but I do think for me coming under on Josh Jackson is going to be something I make sure to go out of my way to do just because I think he's being overvalued today. Josh Jackson has historically been a good player, but Detroit's doing some weird things with their rotations that I think make it tough for him to really be reliably there every game. And you do have the random Sadiq Bey games that pop up here and there. You do have days where Killian Hayes shoots a little bit more. You have days where Frank Jackson will literally not pass the ball to anybody. Will just put up all his shots and somehow impress Dwayne Casey in that process and then take minutes away from Josh Jackson. So I think there are a lot of ways that Josh Jackson can fail. So I think just coming in under on him today, if he is going to hold as one of the chalkiest players on the slate, just seems like a wise move.
All right, guys, well done. 1 minute to go. Actually, just kidding. Thank you both for joining us today. Loved the voices, loved the insight per usual. Thank you all for joining us. I was with you. It was great to be with you for the entire 55 minutes today. As you noticed, my camera did not shut out because I was using a computer camera. So
that's
Greg,
one way
to fix it.
Actual Greg, as opposed to me, Greg.
Yeah, no, just the apparition of Greg that appears in my heart and mind at all times.
God, get me out of here. Hit eject.
Really quickly, where can we find you guys next?
Oh, I'm done for the day, but tomorrow I think I don't know. Tomorrow I have the MLB deeper dive. It all blurs together in the name of great content, but I'll be wherever Eric is doing a pirate voice. That's where you can find me next.
Yes. No, I'll be on the show tomorrow with you. I'll be on the show tomorrow, tip off with Greg, and then I will be on Live Before Lock with one Chris Spags. I'm sure Money Time will be entertaining and informative, so come and check it out.
Love it. Yes. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. The NBA Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock are coming your way right on this stream up next. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern on the tip off. I'm Kayla Knierim. Good night.
And I just got my Top Shot pack. Things are really
Did you really?
Hey.
Oh, there you go. Hey.
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by OddsShopper. I'm Dave Loughran. On the Twitters at Laffy_D, joined by Adam Scherer at ShipMyMoneyDFS. What's going on, brother? Got some monster totals today coming down the pike for an 8-gamer.
Yeah, looking like a lot of fantasy points again tonight. Not as crazy a slate, at least as of right now, as we've had in some recent days. So that's kind of nice too. 8-gamer, kind of a nice sweet spot in the middle. I'm actually pretty excited for it.
Yeah, so am I. Well, the first few games that we're going to hit on will take a while. Thins out a little bit once you get towards those later games. Philly, Chicago at 9 o'clock. New York, Memphis has a couple pieces we can get to. Denver, Lakers, Spurs, Utah. But this first handful of games is really intense, and we'll dive into that in just a second. But before we do, happy to have all of you guys with us. Smash that thumbs up button. First thing you do when you walk in here. If you haven't done it yet, hit that. Let's push it through the roof and subscribe to the channel. That is huge. If you haven't subscribed, you're just hanging out, watching, maybe perusing. You stumbled upon the Awesemo. Hit that subscribe. Join the community here. And if you hate us, unsubscribe. You never have to hear from us again. I don't think that'll be the case, but there's a quick out here in the event that you're not satisfied with your previous decision. And of course, the notification bell as well is there for anyone who hasn't hit that and wants to know when we go live. Question first, Adam, on this slate, are we looking at yet another stars and scrubs approach going into tonight's 7 p.m. lock?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how you don't end up getting there because you have a lot of guys to pay up for. And not only do you have a lot of guys to pay up for, you have a lot of guys in fantastic spots to pay up for. But then you also have not like an abundance of cheap value tonight, but enough, I think, that you'll be able to make some pretty strong lineups there. You have one game in particular, the Detroit-Orlando game, where neither team is interested in winning. Both teams are resting about 15 guys apiece. And so you're going to get, plenty of minutes from relatively cheap guys in that game in particular, and then some other spots that you can look to as well. So, yeah, I mean, right now it's not one of those slates where, right now we don't have a team like the Spurs yesterday where it's like, okay, there's 8 3K guys. They're going to play 24 minutes or more. Who do you pick? But there is still plenty of value that'll allow you to get the top plays into your lineup.
All right. Well, let's jump in, starting with Washington and Indiana. 245.5 total. Huge total, Adam. And it makes sense. Both of these teams are playing at the fastest paces in the league. Neither of them particularly good defensively. This should be a track meet from start to finish. I don't see any way it's not, unless both teams just fail miserably shooting from the field. And even in that case, with the amount of possessions you're going to get a lot of rebounds, a lot of steals, a lot of peripherals. So even if the game does go under, you're still looking at a spot where the overall frenetic pace that we're going to be watching over the course of 48 minutes is going to put a lot of these players in really, really good spots.
Yeah, I was going to say, it may or may not hit the total, but if it goes under because of poor shooting, you're still getting stats, at least from the bigs and Indiana bigs and Russell Westbrook. So yeah, it's a game where, we're still waiting on Indiana injury news, which will be huge. But there's going to be a lot of very good plays from this game.
I think so too. I'm looking forward to it. Diving in with the Indiana Pacers first. Domantas Sabonis. I told Josh on this morning's strategy show, Monday through Sunday, every day of the week, 10 a.m. Eastern, hang out with us. It's a great time, and you get some DFS knowledge along the way. I was so glad I didn't play on Saturday because we do like a neighborhood derby day party, and everyone hangs out and gets drunk, and I was in no condition to play DFS. But I go upstairs.
That's the only condition to play NBA DFS right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. But this would have just been like guaranteed L's across the board. I pull up the slate just to see what went on that night. And the first thing I see is the Pacers win by like almost 60 points. And Sabonis in 3/4 of play had 76 DraftKings points. It was just one of the most bonkers games you're ever going to see all season long.
Yeah, I was glad that MMA was on Saturday because I was pretty pissed off with myself for Sabonis. Like, I was looking at him like, this is a really good play in his first game back, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. And then he just went absolutely nuts. And he gets another good spot here against Washington. It's kind of the way I put it in the deep dive today was no matter what, it's a great spot for Sabonis. Depending on the injury news, it could just get even better. If Goga Bitadze sits again and Malcolm Brogdon sits again, then you're getting Sabonis playing center and you're getting Sabonis basically playing point center. And it would just be the best situation you can possibly put him in a great matchup against the Wizards. The assist percentage jumps without Brogdon. Usage rate jumps a little bit. It would just be a great spot for Sabonis. But even if Brogdon plays or Goga Bitadze plays, he's still in a really good spot. He played about 30 minutes in only 3/4 of that blowout win over the Thunder. So I think that was one of the most important things to see is that he wasn't he wasn't limited. He was playing his normal minutes. If that game had been close, you're assuming he played 36 to 38 minutes, and that's how I view it tonight. So I think that if we assume everyone's in for Indiana, Sabonis is a really good option. If guys start getting ruled out, particularly Brogdon and Goga Batadze, it just gets even better for him.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, though, like the numbers don't necessarily bear it out in an extreme way, but if Brogdon happens to sit, you're dealing with now a guy in Sabonis who you and I actually talked about this in reverse order, right? With Sabonis out, it helps Brogdon because Sabonis is a good passer. Sabonis does pretty much everything well outside of play defense. If Brogdon sits, how much do you see it impacting someone like Sabonis, who outside of Caris LeVert and at times TJ McConnell can actually take on more of a facilitating role and is already benefiting from the fact that Miles Turner isn't there? Granted, not the best rebounder, but at the same time, like it's definitely going to help him no matter what.
Yeah, so it's an interesting spot, and it's one of those where, like, if you're someone that looks, that does your own research and looks stuff up, pay attention to the rates that guys are putting up over smaller samples in addition to the fantasy points per minute. Because, for example, in going back to last season, Sabonis has played 14 games without Brogdon and without. Hang on, I have the numbers in the deep dive. I'm trying to make sure I get it right. So he's played 14 games without Turner and with Brogdon since the start of last season. He's averaged 1.35 DraftKings points per minute. So that's kind of like where the baseline would be today if Brogdon plays. He's only played 3 games without both of Brogdon and Sabonis, or Brogdon and Turner. So like you don't want to look too much into that. If you look at the minutes he has played this year without Brogdon and Turner, he's averaged about 1.35 DraftKings points per minute. So on one hand, you might say, oh, well, he's going to produce at like the same rate, whether Brogdon's in or out. But the thing that's interesting is that in those minutes, he has a 27% assist percentage, which is up from where he's normally at. He has a 24% usage rate, which is up from where he's normally at. But he only has a 17% rebounding percentage over those 296 minutes without Brogdon and Turner. There's no reason that taking Brogdon off the floor is going to take rebounds away from Domantas Sabonis. So you would expect that he's going to rebound at the same rate that he normally does without Turner, which is up around 22% over a larger sample. So I think that even though this season the rates, with and without Brogdon are about the same, as that sample gets bigger, you can expect him to be producing 1.5 to 1.6 DraftKings points per minute, I think.
I don't think you're wrong either. And someone mentioned in chat too, this might really sway you because why would it not? Paul says today is also Domantas Sabonis' birthday, and I just checked it out. It is true.
That changes everything.
So, I mean, you go from
everything coming up Sabonis.
You go like 30% to 80%, something like that.
Lock button.
Just
first lock button of the entire season coming out of my mouth.
Because of the birthday.
Only because of the birthday.
I wouldn't care if this was the most special day of the year for Sabonis. He's facing the Washington Wizards, and that's front court specifically. That's really all that matters to me.
Yeah, they might have scheduled this game with his birthday in mind.
That's very possible. Yeah, this is his present.
Yeah.
From the NBA.
Yeah.
What else? You touched on it briefly, but I just want to go through the rest of these guys because this game it's going to be absurdly popular for very good reason. And there's no reason we shouldn't be covering, every spot necessary on this one before we get to some games that we're not going to talk much about at all. It's kind of crazy. Like you look at all of Indy and on DraftKings, they're really not getting a lot of ownership. Of course, that has a lot to do with what news comes down the pike on Malcolm Brogdon and Lamb and Goga Batadze and such. But as of now, they're just not getting a lot as a team.
Yeah, and it's a situation where, this team has been shorthanded for a long time, whether it was Brogdon being out or Sabonis being out. So if everyone's in, it's going to be tough to get to them, even though the game is really, really appealing. Sabonis, I think, would still be fine. But, like, Brogdon's not a $9K player when he's playing with Sabonis. LeVert's not an $8,600 player when he's playing with Brogdon and Sabonis. O'Shea Brissett is most likely not a $6,700 player if Sabonis and Batadze are in, for example. So it's I think going to be tough to prioritize them if everyone's in. But, if Brogdon sits, that opens up a lot beyond Sabonis. Edmund Sumner's probable. He's 4,500. You could see around 30 minutes from him. TJ McConnell on DraftKings, only 5,400. Played about 16 first half minutes against Oklahoma City last game. I assume that in a competitive game, you would get around 30 minutes from him. He's, greater than a fantasy point per minute guy in a good spot. If you get, Batadze out and Brogdon out and Lamb out, we already know Jakar Sampson's out as well. You're potentially looking at big minutes from Doug McDermott again, who shot the lights out in their last game and is still only 4K. So a lot, the rest comes down to the injury news. But if guys are out, you're going to get a lot of value here. If everyone's in, then it's pretty much just Sabonis, I think.
Yeah, Doug McDermott had 31 points and 38 DraftKings points.
Yeah, he had like 8 threes or something crazy.
It's just funny because he had 31 points, 1 rebound, and 1 assist.
Yeah, I had him in all 3 of my lineups that night, and I was looking at his stat line. Like, I can't even like pat myself on the back too much for a good play because like he just hasn't missed a shot, and other than that, he's done nothing.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're happy with the results.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Even a semi-respectable game from a peripheral standpoint would have been an easy 50 spot.
Oh yeah,
you know. But
yeah, and I
like,
mean
that's the thing with McDermott is you need him to score 30 points.
Right, exactly.
Washington has a player who doesn't need to score 30 points in order to get it done. That's what we call a strong segue. Russell Westbrook, $11,000 on DK, 11-2 on Fanduel. I mean, through and through, he just gets it done every single night, Adam. It doesn't matter who he's facing, unless, oddly enough, if it's the Cavaliers. But aside from that, you're just getting huge performances. Saturday, that same night, Sabonis went off. The same night, Luka Doncic had a 30-20 game. Westbrook against the Dallas Mavericks had 42, 10, and 9. So he came up 1 assist shy of a triple-double, but played 40 minutes, shot 17 of 30, 3 of 6 from 3, even made 5 of 7 free throws, which is a remarkable feat for Russell Westbrook. He gets it done in a variety of ways, and it doesn't matter what's going on. The guy always comes through. It's really the craziest thing you're going to see every single night. You know you're getting a big game from Westbrook, and if not, you know he at least played 38 to 40 minutes in regulation.
Yeah, it's the same thing we say every time. Like he needs his own price point. He doesn't have it yet, so he's going to be one of the best plays on the slate again. And then you consider the matchup here against a Indiana team that doesn't play well defensively. They play at the fastest pace over the last month. Everything looks good for Westbrook. You know, he's second in minutes per game over the last month, first in assists per game by like 2.5 per game over Draymond Green. He's fourth in total rebounds per game, and he's also averaging 22 points per game. So it's not like, you know, he's Draymond Green-esque and going out there and scoring like 8 points or something. He might not drop 50, but he's getting it done. And you and I have said it a lot too. Like, those are his average numbers. You know, you're getting those rebounds. You know, you're getting those assists. But when he goes out there and actually scores at a high clip, like he did against the Mavericks, you're getting 70 plus. Someone I did the show with Eitan on Saturday morning, and someone in chat said something about fading Westbrook finally paying off the night before. And it's because he only played 3 quarters, but he still got 51 points. Like, he was going to get another 65 or 70 if that game had been competitive. Yeah. So it's just, there's nobody in the league right now that produces at the same rate as Westbrook and plays the same minutes as Westbrook. Like, on this slate, Jokic produces more fantasy points per minute by like 1/10 of a fantasy point per minute, but he's averaging like 4 minutes less per game. So you're still getting to Westbrook. And then on top of that, you know, like Steph Curry, for example, averages a little bit more than Westbrook right now in terms of fantasy points per minute as well, but you're not getting the rebounds from Curry. So he's more scoring dependent. It's easier for him to give you that bad game. Westbrook, you can kind of rely on those stats a little bit more. So just everything looks so good for Westbrook.
The consistency factor with Westbrook from a minutes perspective, and he could have the worst, he could shoot like absolute shit all game long. This guy could shoot 3 for 20 and still give you 60 fantasy points.
He scored 15 actual points 2 games ago, 51.5 DraftKings points, 18 points, 69.5. He has, you know, a game with 14 and 60. I mean, it's just, he does so much outside of scoring that's just kind of, you know, a cherry on top.
You're absolutely right. Now, Bradley Beal, on the other hand, when he's alongside Westbrook this season, 1,225 minutes, he is a 16% assist rate player. His rebound rate is 6.7%. His per minute production is 1.17, but he is still somebody that is going to go out there and chuck it, right? His usage is north of 30% alongside Westbrook. He'll get a couple minutes without him, but there's no denying his peripherals suffer a lot alongside Westbrook. Is that enough for you to get a little bit concerned about him today, seeing that he's got 3, 3, 1, and 4 rebounds over his last 4, 3, 3, 3, and 1 assists? This isn't even game log watching because I just gave you the rates, but I'm just giving you recent performances to show that Bradley Beal right now is extraordinarily scoring dependent. Is the matchup against the Pacers and this total enough to say, okay, I'm fine with them being scoring dependent tonight?
Yeah, I wouldn't say concerned is the word. It's just kind of, Bradley Beal is who he is when Westbrook plays. You do lose those peripherals, like you said, but for the season, he still has a 34% usage rate in the games with Westbrook. So he is scoring dependent. If he wasn't, he would be an 11K player because the guy leads the league in scoring. So like if he was getting peripherals, he would be a lot more expensive than he is. I think he's difficult to trust on slates like this. He's difficult to prioritize because you do have guys for not a whole lot more that look better, not necessarily at the shooting guard position, but when you look at point guard, if I can only roster one, I would like to find the money for Westbrook. I'd rather roster Steph Curry. I'd rather roster Jokic. Like these guys aren't that much more expensive than Beal, but he still comes with a massive ceiling here. You have someone that's going to go out there and just chuck shots, 34% usage rate, like I said, leads the league in per game scoring. And now you're getting a ton of extra possessions here. So he's someone where it's not even necessarily that he negatively correlates with Westbrook since Westbrook isn't scoring dependent. But if you have a lineup where you don't have Westbrook, I think it makes sense to maybe at least consider Beal a little bit more because there's going to be points scored in this game. And if you're not benefiting from Westbrook, the other scoring option on the Wizards is Bradley Beal. So, he's obviously the second piece you can look to get exposure here. Right now, looking on the boom bust tool on DraftKings, only projected for 13% ownership, about a 13% chance of being in the optimal lineup. So I think that, all makes sense. He's not someone that's going to show up in your top lineups when you go by projection, but there's no question that Beal has the ability to go out there and drop 55, 60 fantasy points in this game.
You see a precipitous drop off in ownership outside of Westbrook and then to Beal, and then it just falls off completely to guys like Bertans and Rui getting a little bit here. Is there anyone else from Washington that's worth plugging into some lineups?
There's a couple things to mention. One, pay attention to the starting lineup. Alex Len started last game. Daniel Gafford started the second half. After the game, Scott Brooks basically said the center minutes are available for whoever wants them. I don't know what that means because Daniel Gafford's been playing out of his mind since he came to Washington and he still can't get the minutes consistently. But maybe Daniel Gafford starts tonight. If he does, it bodes well for his playing time and he would start to look like a good option. The other thing to point out is that Rui Hachimura is $3,900 at small forward on Fanduel. He's $4,800 on DraftKings, which whatever. It's a fast-paced game. You're probably getting 33 or 34 minutes if it's close, but $3,900 on Fanduel. I understand he's not a great fantasy producer when Westbrook and Beal are both healthy. He's only averaged about 3/4 of a Fanduel point per minute this year, but you're probably getting 33 or 34 minutes if this game's competitive at $3,900 on Fanduel at small forward. So I think he's a very good value there.
We have premium tools that we put up for free each day. We rotate them so you can get a look in the event that you're not a premium sub yet. We got player projections for NBA free today, MLB main slate ownership projections, and the NHL player projections. Now, Adam, our NBA betting player props tool is always free, and it's a fantastic tool where you have expected win rate on each prop. You have expected ROI. Then you have the prop line with the odds and our projections up against that. I found it very interesting as we work over to the Orlando and Detroit game that we have, for the most part, almost all of the Detroit players getting lower projections than their prop lines, from Sekou Doumbouya to Josh Jackson. Not all of them significant, but enough to put them in all like the top 10 of expected win rate and expected ROI today. Very interesting. So we'll get to that. The tool is totally free. And if you go to OddsShopper.com, you can use all of our player prop tools, our bet tracker, our watch list, and the built-in ROI tool and the built-in win rate tool, all of that great stuff, totally free at OddsShopper.com. You don't have to pay for a single thing. And if you want to check out some of the books that are over there, do so. The best way to bet and be sustained or has sustainable win rates is to be able to shop around. And that's what we do. We have all of the different odds and props from all the different books. So you can find the best ones every single day, not a single cent of cost to you. So check it out and use those prop tools for sure. But if it was interesting to me that Detroit was all up there in like heavy unders, heavy shaded under for everything that Alex had. But with Orlando first, they're dealing with a lot of injuries. Terrence Ross is out. Okiki's out. James Ennis is out. Carter Williams is still out. Otto Porter is no closer to returning. Gary Harris is probable. What do we do with this rotation now that they've got so many guys sidelined once again?
Yeah, I mean, this game in general is going to be useful for DFS. It's also likely to be an absolute shit show as far as the way this game goes. Neither of these teams want to win. Both teams are resting a million guys. On the Orlando side, you do have some value here and some mid-range guys you can look to as well. Mo Wagner stands out. He started the last couple of games in place of Chuma Okeke. He played 28 minutes in 3/4 in the first start. He played 34 minutes in a competitive game against Memphis last time out. So it seems like we can, plug him in for 30 plus minutes. He hasn't produced that as quite a higher rate with Orlando as he has at previous stops in his career, which makes sense because he's playing power forward instead of center. But he still averaged about 0.87 DraftKings points per minute in his 3 games with Orlando. That should be more than enough to get it done at $4,600 price tag on DraftKings. $4,900 is fine on Fanduel as well. You also have Cole Anthony, who has played very well, coming off another game with a game-winning shot and one of the best post-game interviews I've ever seen. And then, now you're getting him at an elevated price tag. He's $6,900 on DraftKings, $6,500, I believe, or $6,300 on Fanduel. But he played about 34 minutes last game. You have a very shorthanded Orlando team again. I think that it's likely you get 32 plus minutes from Anthony again. And he's averaged about 1.2 DraftKings points per minute since Orlando traded away their entire team and in the games where Michael Carter-Williams has been out. So he's producing it at a high rate. He's got a high usage rate, a high assist percentage. He's playing really well. I don't know how often you get to those to mid-range plays on this particular slate, but I think Anthony's one of the better mid-range point guards. And then if you're looking to take on some risk, Mo Bamba is coming off the bench behind Wendell Carter Jr., but Wendell Carter Jr. hasn't been playing as many minutes recently. In his better games, you're getting like 27 or 28 minutes from Carter, but we've also seen some games where you get 24 or 25, and Bamba's pretty much playing the rest of the center minutes. Bamba's produced at a very high rate since he, basically got his way back into the rotation after Vucevic was traded. He's still only 5,100 on DraftKings, 5,600 on FanDuel. If you get 22 to 24 minutes from him, he's pretty likely to pay off that salary. Dwayne Bacon started last game. He played 35 minutes, only averages about 0.8 DraftKings points per minute, even with all these guys out, but a reasonable value. And then RJ Hampton stepped up and played 30 plus minutes last game. With James Ennis out, I think you see at least 26 minutes or so for Hampton again. So another guy that just looks like a pretty decent value at his price point. So a terrible team, but a lot of pieces to look at.
Man, Mo Wagner always scares the hell out of me, though. Like,
yeah,
he scares me enough starting at the 5, and now you've got him starting at the 4. There's just so many things that could go wrong here. His ownership is relatively high, but I kind of changed my tune earlier in the day because I went over to our optimal lineup or our boom bust tool, and he has the 4th highest optimal lineup percentage on the slate on DraftKings right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of even though he's not producing at quite the same rate with Orlando since he is playing the 4 and the rebounds aren't quite as high, he's still just always been a pretty productive player when he's out there. It's always scary going to him because he just has such a long history of doing things to get in foul trouble or just doing stupid things to get taken off the floor. But when you look at this Orlando team, not to jinx it too much, but what are their alternatives here unless he's in massive foul trouble? Like, you have Bamba and Carter, playing 48 minutes or so at center, but there's no Okeke, there's no Isaac, there's no Ennis, there's no Ross, there's no Porter. Like, what are they going to do here? Obviously they don't care about winning this game. They can run, Chase and Randall at the 4 if they wanted to, but as far as things that make sense, he's got to be out there, barring massive foul trouble. And I think while the rates go down playing the 4, it does make me feel a little bit better about the foul trouble because at least he's not, getting, not that Detroit really has anyone that's going to bang at the rim anyway, but, at least he's kind of getting out of foul territory a little bit.
I was going to say this is truly April basketball, and then I realized it was May, and that makes sense that it's even worse than it usually is in April.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think you can look at a lot of these Orlando players and make sense of them, like you just said. Now, the question I'll ask before we go to Detroit, probably what people are wondering is, how many of these guys are good options, good secondary plays? You're fine having them. And how many would you say are legitimate priorities today?
Priorities as in, like, I would expect them to be in my first lineup I build, or priorities as in, like, I really like them compared to other Orlando players?
Priorities as in you are, yeah, I guess you could say, I was going to say above the field on them, but that could be above the field on a 5%er, right? So, like, priorities as in you agree that they're high owned and you're going to have around the field or more, or yeah, they're in your the first lineup and you have a good amount of them.
Yeah. So I think Wagner, Bamba, and Anthony are all very good plays. I think Bacon, Hampton, and I guess even Carter are decent plays.
Okay. Now with Detroit, it doesn't get any easier here. It's funny. Who would have thought that with a game that has a 211 total, you and I would be spending this much time on it, but there's a lot there. And now Jeremy, we're seeing Dwayne Casey run it back once again. Jeremy Grant is out. Mason Plumlee, Corey Joseph's out. Wayne Ellington is out. Jahlil Okafor is out. Dennis Smith Jr. and Magruder haven't played since like March. Hamidou Diallo is always questionable, and then he ends up playing, but he has the Q tag right now, which leads us to questions of, do we pay for Isaiah Stewart? Do we go to Sadiq Bey? Does Josh Jackson warrant a good amount of ownership today? Do we expect Killian Hayes to be around that 1 fantasy point per minute producer, which he's been in this situation this season? And does Frank Jackson get enough minutes to pay off his salary despite coming in at low ownership? Those are all the questions that need to be answered. And well, you're the guy to do it.
Yeah, so I think the Detroit side is a little bit less appealing than the Orlando side just because their prices have elevated a little bit quicker. But there are still guys to look at here. Josh Jackson, I think, is the first one. He was really, really bad in his last game, but he still played 34 minutes. And this is someone that, averages over a fantasy point per minute under these conditions. He has about a 28% usage rate. If he gets 30-plus minutes again, he's going to most likely do well for his salary. Do pay attention to the Amadou Diallo news. It's not huge as far as I don't think it changes the guys that I would still like, but if he's out, it just solidifies stuff here because it would, they'd legitimately be really shorthanded. If he's out, you probably do get another 33 or 34 from Jackson. If he's in, you probably get 30, which would still be fine. Sadiq Bey, you probably get around 34 or 35 if Diallo's in. If he's out, Sadiq Bey played 40 minutes last game, and I'm not convinced he would play much less today. So another guy that doesn't produce at a great rate, but he's still 0.88 DraftKings points per minute. And if you're getting 36 to 40 minutes from him, he's going to be a reasonable value even at his increased price tag. Isaiah Stewart, power forward on Fanduel, center on DraftKings, $6,300. He's fine. He's played well in his starts. He's averaging 30 minutes per game in the starts he's made this year without Jeremy Grant. He's got a 22% rebounding percentage. He's averaging about 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. And the center slate actually isn't quite as deep as some others. It's top heavy. You have Embiid, you have Jokic, you have possibly Vooch, but the mid-range isn't quite as strong. So I think it'll be a little bit easier to get to Isaiah Stewart today than it normally is. And then in the backcourt, you have Killian Hayes priced up to $5,200 on DraftKings, but only $4,400 on FanDuel. I think the DraftKings price is fine because you're probably getting around 30 minutes, and he's a 0.92 DraftKings points per minute guy with all these guys off the floor. But on FanDuel, it's even better at only $4,400. I think he really stands out there. And then Frank Jackson, sort of the same thing, $4,200 point guard on FanDuel, $4,700 shooting guard on DraftKings. He's probably the one guy that I think is impacted the most by Amadou Diallo, because if Diallo plays, you're probably looking at 27 to 28 minutes from Frank Jackson. You got 34 minutes last game without Diallo. And if you're going to get 34 minutes from Frank Jackson, I think he looks decent. If you're only getting 28, I think he's overpriced.
So I spent the entirety of my day running a query on Killian Hayes because it took that long to take all of these players off the court, right? Rose, Griffin, Plumlee, Grant, DeLon Wright, Dennis Smith Jr., Corey Joseph. Not to say that all of them are necessary, but, I figure why not go the distance. He's played 215 minutes, 0.91 fantasy points per minute. Josh Jackson's 1.06. Isaiah Stewart's 1.06 in these scenarios. Again, with Stewart, you could really just take Plumlee off the floor and probably get similar numbers, right? But there's just so many moving parts on this team because they got rid of a lot of their highest usage guys, their main facilitators, and again, higher usage like Derrick Rose and to some extent Blake Griffin. And now everyone else is off. So who would you say today benefits the most from this situation? Is it Josh Jackson again? And is Killian Hayes priced at a point where we're getting away from him?
I think it's hard to say who benefits the most because obviously Isaiah Stewart goes from playing 20 minutes to 30 minutes.
I only say that because their prices have all come up now. So it's you're not getting the same value we would have a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, for sure.
But you could play all of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you still can. They're just not
not
a
in the
couple
same
weeks
lineup,
ago.
though.
A couple weeks ago, it would have been I'm easily getting to 3 of them in every lineup. Now it's more they're good. They'll fit in.
Exactly.
I think, Killian Hayes' FanDuel price, I think is super appealing. Jackson's DraftKings price, I think, is really appealing, even coming off of the bad game. Stewart and Bey, I think, are both fine. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a less appealing team than it was.
Okay. I'm a boss says, who weighs more, Eagles first round pick or Ben Rossa? Devontae Smith's got 50 pounds on Ben for sure.
Oh, I wasn't sure if they were talking. I was thinking a normal football player. I was then Ben?
They eat Ben's weight for breakfast.
Right.
No, Devontae Smith's 166. Ben's probably what, buck 30, buck 25?
Yeah, I'd say 125, 130.
125, 130, yeah. What are you weighing in at these days? 182?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah? Did I nail it?
Somewhere around there. I mean, depends on the day.
I want you to weigh yourself and report back. I feel like Detroit, there's only so much we can do here. So priorities, yes or no?
FanDuel, Killian Hayes, I think is a priority. DraftKings, Josh Jackson, I think is a priority. And then, Stewart, Bey, Hayes are all, I think, good plays, but not necessarily guys that I'd be getting to right away.
Michael Applegate says 30 minutes in, only 2 games. Uh-oh, LOL. No, this is, I kid you not, we're actually making a good pace here because what are there, 3 or 4 games that we'll probably spend 5 minutes on each, if that?
Yeah, there's teams. So I wrote the deep dive today, and then I prepped for the show, and there's still teams that I keep forgetting are playing today.
Yeah, you want us to spend this much time on these games, I promise, including Golden State and New Orleans. The Golden State Warriors, 2.5-point dogs. I like, too, that all these games we've hit on so far should be competitive. I can't say they will be, but they should be. This one is no exception. They're 2.5-point dogs, 236 total, Adam. And this is only the 3rd highest total on the slate. Andrew Wiggins is questionable. Kelly Oubre's already been ruled out. And guys like Damian Lee, who were getting a decent amount of run and would in this scenario, he is out, hasn't played since the 19th of April, and won't be back today in COVID-19 protocols. So if Andrew Wiggins happens to sit, that opens the door to some real opportunities for some of these reserve players on Golden State.
Yeah, it does. I think you would see even more minutes for Jordan Poole, who we know can produce at a high rate. You'd get a lot of minutes from Michael Mulder, who really cares. Nico Mannion maybe gets back into the rotation, but it would also solidify the playing time for Juan Toscano-Anderson and Kent Bazemore, which would be great for them. So it's already a team where, like, if you're playing a lot of tournament lineups, I think you can at least consider Jordan Poole. You can consider Juan Toscano-Anderson because they both have a path to production and minutes. And then Bazemore is, I think, a good play regardless. But if Wiggins is out, it's just opening up so many more minutes for a team that would be legitimately shorthanded.
I'm looking at this Golden State team and seeing a lot of opportunities and a possibility that we get this news pre-locked because it's a 7:30 game. But we'll start with Stephen Curry. I mean, the easiest question here is, how does he stack up against Westbrook today? Can you see yourself getting lineups with Westbrook and Steph Curry on DraftKings and on Fanduel, where Steph Curry is way cheaper than Russell Westbrook? It's a whole different conversation, but he's only $200 cheaper than Westbrook on DraftKings.
Yeah, so I think that he's very similar to Westbrook, both in terms of projection and in terms of upside, especially because Kelly Oubre is out. He's played 730 minutes without Oubre on the floor this year. He's averaged 1.68 DraftKings points per minute, 36.8% usage percentage for one of the most efficient scorers in the NBA. And now he's getting a fast-paced game against the Pelicans. So I think he's very similar to Westbrook. The tiebreaker to me, if their ownership is similar, goes back to the rebounding. Like, I'm just less concerned about Westbrook's floor than I am Curry's. Not to say I'm concerned about Curry, but, kind of splitting hairs, I would lean toward Westbrook. Also, a couple of extra minutes for Westbrook. But I think both guys are great. Really like both. Of course, the FanDuel salary makes Curry look better. The scoring system on FanDuel benefits Curry because he doesn't turn the ball over as much as Westbrook. And the $1,500 in savings makes a huge difference as well. On DraftKings, I would lean toward Westbrook, but both are really good.
What else on Golden State here?
Everything. I mean, Draymond Green, I think, is underpriced for this game. 7,400 on FanDuel is, I think, a fine price tag, but there's some other power forwards that are underpriced as well. 7K on DraftKings, I think, really stands out relative to the position because, like, when you think about the guys at the top, Zion's 10K, Sabonis is 9,800, Randall, I think, is like 9,700. So you have a pretty big gap there where those guys are priced close to correctly, and Green really isn't. He's averaged 1.2 DraftKings points per minute in his 6 games without Wiseman and Oubre this year. We know the rebounding, the blocks go up without Wiseman. The assist numbers are great whenever Curry plays. He's second in the NBA over the last month behind Westbrook in assists per game, as I mentioned earlier. So he looks really good here. And then Kent Bazemore, probably playing around 30 to 32 minutes. That could go up if Wiggins is out. He's priced at a point where I don't think he stands out as a top value anymore, but there is still, some meat on the bone because he's getting 30 to 32 minutes against the Pelicans in a fast-paced game at a relatively weak position. So no issues with Bazemore, but I would say Steph and Green are the priorities.
Okay, and then one more time, because this news is going to be huge. If Wiggins sits and joins Oubre on the bench, who are your top value options coming in their stead?
I'd give more minutes to Poole, which would make him look really good. I'd give more minutes to Toscano-Anderson, which would make him look really good. I mean, Toscano-Anderson's someone who is likely to play 26 to 28 minutes anyway. He played 34 last game, including some garbage run against Houston. Jordan Poole, I think, is the one that would benefit the most because, he played 25 minutes last game, but he only played about 11 minutes in the first half. So, if this game's competitive and Wiggins is in, you're probably getting 22 to 24 minutes from Poole. If Wiggins is out, you could easily be looking at 28 to 30 from Jordan Poole. You could easily be looking at 30 to 32 from Toscano-Anderson and 34 to 36 from Bazemore.
If I told you right now, if I asked you a question, what would your reaction be if I said the NBA should do away, they should abandon the draft entirely and just let players coming into the league go wherever they want?
I was having this conversation on Twitter earlier. Is that why you're asking?
No, what side are you on?
I wasn't on a side. We were just talking about getting rid of tanking, and I brought up if they just didn't have the draft, and then we got into the weeds on all the implications of it.
Okay, yeah, because Josh and I got into a long debate today on the strategy show about it. I think it's untenable. He thinks it would work.
I think it could work. They'd have to change a couple of things because you would have to, like, in some ways it would work, I think, because a lot of the good teams don't have the salary to like pay the top rookies, but some of them do. Like, and whenever teams like Miami or Houston, like desirable locations, if they only have like 1 or 2 max players, they're going to just get the top rookie, and it's going to be easier for them to rebuild too. Like they're never, unless they take on a really stupid contract, they're never going to like go through a prolonged period of being bad because they're going to just get the next, top rookie. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think it would really work, but there's some aspects I think would be good, but I don't think it would really work.
I feel like tampering would be off the charts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, listen, come here. We got 6 girls for you posted up at the Holiday Inn, and we can do this every single week. Okay. And we'll give you as much money as you want. Just come to Minnesota.
Right. Well, and that's what I was thinking too. Like you'd have to like pay so much attention to under the table deals because like you'd have teams with like 3 max players, like you'd have like the Lakers with, 3 max players or something. And then, a spot where everyone wants to go. And then you'd have like Jalen Suggs be like, yeah, I'll sign for the minimum, just wire me $30 million.
Exactly. Yeah, no doubt. Now with the Warriors, with the New Orleans Pelicans, Zion, the moment you and I started talking about the peripherals being down, comes up and finally posts a couple games with some good additional stats outside of just scoring. But can he be stacked up against the likes of Westbrook today and Curry today? I get that this is a very high total game. You have Jokic against the Lakers without LeBron James. You have Joel Embiid. You have Julius Randle against Memphis. You have Domantas Sabonis at a similar price point against the Washington Wizards. The list goes on. I could legitimately keep going with a lot of these players north of 9K today. Where does Williamson slot in for you here?
It's really site dependent for me. On DraftKings, he's 10K. I don't have any issue with him. If you get to him, great. He's clearly got a high ceiling. It's a good matchup, all that. But it's going to be difficult to prioritize him just because of where he is relative to some other options. On FanDuel, he's 9K. So he's less expensive than Davis. He's less expensive than Sabonis. I think Williamson looks great on FanDuel at 9K. I think he's pretty clearly underpriced there. So one of my favorite plays on FanDuel, nice luxury, I guess, on DraftKings.
Okay. Does anybody else stand out to you for New Orleans?
Brandon Ingram.
By the way, Steven Adams is questionable, which is pretty significant.
Yeah, Adams is a big deal because, of course, if he's out, you probably get another start from Hernan Gomez. Brandon Ingram, I think, is underpriced on both DraftKings and FanDuel, but especially FanDuel. You're getting him at like 7,200 or 7,400. He's averaged 34 minutes per game in the games that he's played with Zion and Lonzo this year. He's averaged about 1.18 DraftKings points per minute. I think it's just a misprice on FanDuel, and I think it's fine on DraftKings as well. Ball, of course, has a high ceiling too, but you do have a pretty loaded point guard position, so he'll probably be the most difficult to get to out of that trio.
Someone says, why am I signed into my mom's YouTube? WTF. Hilltop Farm and Coops. I don't know why I find that funny, but I do. Sign out and sign back in, pal. Portland and Atlanta. Let's talk about the Blazers here. This is the game with the second highest total. Or I'm sorry, it's actually come down now, 235.5, but still. Blazers 2.5 point dogs against the Atlanta Hawks. Norman Powell's questionable. Aside from that, you've got Lillard, McCollum, Nurkic, everybody healthy. What are we doing with Lillard's price point now, weighing in at $9,200 on DraftKings, which seems like a pretty decent salary there, and $8,900 on FanDuel? The question is, with all these games we've already touched on, all these high-scoring spots, all of these great players, is it even still really difficult to make Lillard, who's had 2 great games now, 2 very good games, I should say, at that salary in a row, a priority here against a pretty bad Atlanta defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting price point because you look at the price point and you're like, oh, that's a good salary for Lillard. Like, I was making my list of who to put in the deep dive article today, and I saw his salary. I was like, oh, got to write about Lillard. And then I wrote about Westbrook and Curry first, and I get to Lillard, and I'm just like, yeah, it's a good price, but like, how do you I can't make him sound nearly as good as Curry and Westbrook because he's just not. He averages from a fantasy standpoint. He averages 1.25 to 1.3 DraftKings points per minute with McCollum and Nurkic this year. Curry's at almost 1.7, Westbrook's at like 1.65, and you're getting similar playing time from Westbrook and Curry as well. So you can't even make that argument in favor of Lillard. So he's got a very high ceiling. Anytime you talk about someone that can go out there and score 50 actual points at the drop of a hat, he's got a very high ceiling, but it's more of a tournament play, more of a contrarian option. Right now, on both DraftKings and Fanduel, he's projected for like 11 to 13% ownership, 11 to 13% chance of being in the optimal lineup. So it seems like ownership coming in about where it should right now, but should have lower ownership than those other two guys, but I think they're also better plays.
What about the rest of Portland?
Kind of the same thing. Like McCollum is fine. Shooting guard's not as deep a position as point guard, but of course everything kind of gets mixed together in your lineups as well. He's really cheap, I think, on Fanduel, 7,400. So I'd be looking to him there more so than on DraftKings. Nurkic, I think, is okay as well, probably getting around 28 minutes from him. But again, you have a lot of spots to pay up at center. The mid range isn't the strongest, so maybe Nurkic is a little bit easier to get to there. But when you look across other positions, I think it just kind of ends up being a stars and scrubs slate where maybe it's tough to get Nurkic in.
Okay. So even though this game has a super high total, Portland doesn't really stand out to you in a huge way. I will throw out that CJ McCollum is $7,400 on FanDuel, which is going to be pulling pretty decent ownership. Yeah,
McCollum's FanDuel salary is the one thing that stands out to me the most.
What about Atlanta? Trey, Capella, Bogdanovich is probable to play. They're getting healthy from where they were a week ago. But from an ownership perspective, at least looking over at our tools right now, our ownership projections, there's not a whole lot here that really jumps off the page.
Yeah, there's not much I see either. It's a team where there are some high ceilings. Of course, Trae Young can put up a monster game. Clint Capella can, and so can John Collins. So, like, those three are okay. But in terms of prioritizing them, I just can't really do it, even though it is a good matchup against Portland. Young at 9,400, like, I would rather go to Lillard. But Young's sort of in that same conversation. Capella's priced up to 8,700. I do think 6,500 for John Collins on FanDuel is kind of interesting. The issue is just though that like you have like an underpriced Zion, for example. You have a
Brogdon's out, Batadze's out.
Okay, so Sabonis just got even better, so it's tougher to get to John Collins.
Yep. Lamb's
so yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like I think any of those guys are fine. They have a role in tournament lineups, but I wouldn't say that they're guys I'm getting to earlier or often.
All right. Would you say that is Atlanta as a whole then?
Yep.
Okay. We got 4 down, 4 to go. Jordan, let's run through this Hall of Fame real quickly. I want to make sure we get everything in here, but we had a bunch of wins from the past couple of days. So I'm going to fly through this and show you why we brag for you guys and love to put these names up here, but also how you can get your name up here and win a free month of Awesemo Plus the entire month. Everything on the site. It's a $95 value. Download the Awesemo profile pic at awesemo.com/avatar. Use it for your teams, for your log, or for your account. And if you win, you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, let us know. Mention at Awesemo Hall of Fame. Throw my name in there as well at Lafayette_D. Win your free month of Awesemo Platinum. This could be, by the way, a nickel, even if it's the nickel or a quarter. If there's more than 5,000 people, you finish top 3. Even if you won $60, you still get the free month, which is worth even more than that. So it's a win-win. You got Jay Whalen with the $1,000 win once again. You had another one here. Our boy, CEO of Awesemo.com, very quiet in his wins, but Tom JK321 with the 15K and the 4K. Chicago Bears 1985 coming in with the second place out of 6,000 people. Beautiful stuff. Welcome to Awesemo, fella. Loving stealing nickels. Thanks, boys. Here we go with another one. $400 first place in the NBA piggy bank. See, it doesn't matter what you're playing. We got you covered. And another here. Second place, $200, or first place, actually, matter of fact, $200. An afternoon slate was good to me, says Alan Phillips. Congratulations to all of you guys. And I will throw out there that Jake Hari has just been absolutely crushing the NHL scene. I don't know why we don't have him up here. Boo 2651, third place in what looks to be another large field, small, low dollar tournament. Congrats to everyone. Download that avatar at awesemo.com/avatar. Get it in there and let us know when you win at Awesemo Hall of Fame, at Lafayette_D. Capture your free month and bragging rights for the week as we'll put you up here and do it all for you. All right, man, let's talk about New York and Memphis. Nice work on that, Jordan. Let's go to New York and Memphis. The New York Knicks are 3.5-point dogs, 221 total. The Nerlens Noel news is what I want to talk about. I know Josh was pretty excited about this early in the day. How does that affect the slate from a Taj Gibson standpoint?
It gives us a minimum price value option at power forward if Noel is out, because as bad as it feels to talk about Taj Gibson in the year 2021, Tom Thibodeau is going to Tom Thibodeau, and we've seen it already this year that Taj Gibson will get minutes if he starts in place of Noel. So
is there any way Nerlens Noel plays? Like I
mean, he's questionable.
Yeah, but he had X-rays on his ankle yesterday. I mean, he's getting reevaluated today.
Yeah, like I'm assuming he doesn't play. I don't really know why he's listed as questionable, but Gibson has started 2 games this year and he has averaged 34.7 minutes per game. So it's going to feel really weird, like being like, oh, I think Taj Gibson plays 30 plus minutes, but that's been the case, and it's going to give us a minimum salary guy that produces at a decent rate if Noel is out.
What do you think his ownership would be or will look like if he's out?
Massive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Highest owned on the slate.
Probably, because right now we have value, we have good value, but we don't have like a 3K guy like Gibson.
Yeah, I mean, Orlando value has all caught up to their minutes in production, right? Detroit's mostly all caught up. Indy's all caught up with even with Brogdon out, mostly everybody's caught up. I can't think of any teams that haven't adjusted yet for these prior absences.
Right, they're not caught up in terms of like they're still underpriced in a lot of spots.
You can still play them, yeah.
Right, but they're not just minimum salary, you know. We don't have right now, at least we don't have a yesterday where you have like 6 guys that are 3,100 and likely to play 28 minutes.
Put it this way. They're all like 10 to 20% guys instead of 30 to 50% guys where they were last week.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just pulled it up, to make sure, because it was only 2 games. I didn't want to just use the average, but 34 minutes on March 27th against the Bucks, 35 minutes on April 14th against the Pelicans. So 2 separate starts for Taj Gibson, 34 and 35 minutes.
All right, there you go. Michael Applegate, welcome to Team Awesemo, brother. We had a super chat earlier, Jordan. I don't know if you can find that. It was too early in the show for me to talk about the top contrarian plays on Fanduel when we were still on the first game. It just, fucks up the flow. So I needed to wait a little bit on that, but I didn't forget about you. I will hit on it. Anything else for the Knicks?
Yeah, I mean, got to talk about Julius Randle and RJ Barrett, I think. Randall is just, I think, going to be on this particular slate really difficult to get to, but it's another guy where, I mean, he plays huge minutes. He's the only guy in the NBA playing more minutes per game than Westbrook, and he averages about 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. So if you can get there, then, by all means, but there's guys that I'm putting ahead of him. RJ Barrett, I'm interested. So it's 2 games in a row now where Alec Burks has not been on the injury report, but he also has not been playing. RJ Barrett averages like 38 minutes per game without Burks this year, 33 when Burks has played. So it is one spot where I don't think Barrett's a great play either way. He's gotten expensive enough, but you're probably looking at like 38 to 40 minutes again if Alec Burks isn't going to play. So I think those are the 2 things worth mentioning. And then also do keep in mind, I mentioned those 2 games where Taj Gibson started. They do have Norvell Pell now. So, maybe you get like 30 or 31 minutes, but at the same time, Tom Thibodeau is still a crazy person. So who knows? All
right. Josh just DMs me, says, Dustin May, Tommy John surgery. I'm assuming that is just to, let you know that your doppelganger is going down for the season. New York, outside of them, that's about it, I guess. Memphis, deep rotation. Grayson Allen is questionable for this one. The rest of the 1,000 players that are going to get minutes on this team are currently active, not on the injury list. Jaws Price has come up. Joval maybe gets 30 minutes and has a big game, but not the greatest matchup against the Knicks. One of the lower totals on the slate. Is there anything you like from the Memphis Grizzlies?
No, I don't have anything here. I mean, of course, Joval can have a good game. John Morant can have a good game. They're going to have opportunities and they're good players, but their salaries don't look very appealing. The matchup doesn't look very appealing. There's a million other guys that I like. I don't really have anything else to say.
All right. I want to talk about, I want to be able to get through this game so we can get to the final 2 games, and then we'll turn it over to the Live Before Lock crew coming up right after us. As always, you've got Josh Ingram and Greg Ehrenberg taking you all the way up till 7 p.m. Eastern lock. Philly and Chicago. The Philadelphia 76ers laying 6 points on the road, second of a back-to-back overtime game yesterday. Full strength. Almost got beat by a skeleton crew Spurs team. Just really embarrassing, but Ben Simmons saved his only shot of the game to win it. One of his only 5, actually.
Did he really take 1 shot?
No, but he took like 5. He had 3 points until the final second of the game. And then he tipped in a Joel miss to win it. And it almost made me mad because now he'll be the hero. 211.5 total. Philly's healthy. Then we can talk about the Bulls team, but Does a healthy Philly team tonight have any appeal to you whatsoever outside of maybe some tournament shares of Joel Embiid?
Not really. Like it doesn't feel good. I didn't even put Joel Embiid in the deep dive today, which feels awful because he's, certainly capable of being the highest scoring center, but there's so many guards in that price range that look really good and just play more minutes than Embiid. Like Embiid produces at a similar rate to Westbrook and to Curry, a little bit lower, but similar rate. But you're just looking normally at 32 or 33 minutes, whereas those guys are averaging 36 or 38. Jokic, is playing as well, and he's someone that produces better than Embiid. So I'm never going to tell anyone not to play Embiid in tournaments because he's certainly capable of putting up a monster game. But I think there's enough alternatives here that they can't all be super popular, and so it's going to be a little bit more difficult to prioritize him. I think the price on Tobias Harris is reasonable. The price on Ben Simmons is reasonable, but all three of those guys are more so just like last piece in contrarian type plays. If I have a chalkier lineup, I can fit them in and still have a nice ceiling, but the likelihood of them reaching it, I don't think is as good as a lot of other players in their price ranges.
Okay. We had a super chat as well coming in from Anime Lingo says, why has Howard been getting so much playing time? Does he get the same time tonight? He actually hasn't been getting that much playing time. He's had a little bit of additional run because of blowouts and Joel Embiid foul trouble. He's just been absolutely smashing Adam. The Dwight Howard rates recently have been through the roof. You're talking like 2+ DraftKings points per minute. But at the same time, this is Dwight Howard we're talking about. Is there any interest at all on this slate with so much value in someone like Dwight Howard?
No, because like you said, it's not that the playing time is up. He's just producing at a huge rate, but he's not going to play alongside Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid, barring foul trouble, injury, or blowout, isn't going to play less than like 32 or 33 minutes.
Exactly.
So there's only so many minutes there for Howard. Now you also just got another center in that price range with Steven Adams ruled out. Willie Hernan-Gomez, a cheapish center that is going to produce a fantasy point per minute over 28 or 30 minutes. So even less reason to take that chance.
And if you guys did miss that, Steven Adams is confirmed out. So Willie Hernan-Gomez now becomes a pretty decent value option at center. His price is corrected, obviously, with Adams out, but it's still viable. What about Chicago, Adam? Nikola Vucevic questionable. Zach LaVine remains doubtful.
I think if Vooch is in, and he was likely to play, or he was available 2 games ago or last game and then was scratched shortly before lock. If he's able to play, I have some tournament interest there, particularly on Fanduel. He's $9K, $9,900 on DraftKings, not quite as affordable, but still 1.41 DraftKings points per minute in the games he's played without LaVine since joining the Bulls. And at the beginning, you were getting like 31 to 33 minutes, even in competitive games. But recently, you've been getting 36 or 37 minutes from him. So the playing times looked really good. The production's been good. The problem is just that on DraftKings, he's expensive. And also, he has this, a really tough matchup here with Embiid, a tough Philly defense in general. Vooch certainly capable of having success here, but I think it's much more of a tournament play than anything I'd be considering in cash, just given the risks associated with this matchup.
Okay, is that like your top to bottom analysis on Chicago?
Yeah, if Vooch is ruled out, you get some value with Tice, you get some value with Thaddeus Young, but and also you get some value with Patrick Williams. But assuming he plays, it's pretty much Vooch or nothing, I think.
Would you really like Tice if this is the case? If he starts at the 5?
No. I'd rather play Hernan-Gomez than Tice.
Okay. Would you think Tice starts at the 5?
Yeah, I assume you would get the same starting lineup you got last game with White, Temple, Williams, Young, Tice.
Okay, I would think so as well. Thaddeus Young has played really well, like surprisingly well.
Yeah, that's why I think he becomes interesting if Vooch is out. Like the price tag isn't great. It's already jumped $1,000 on DraftKings, but he's been almost a 1.2 DraftKings points per minute guy this year. It's just been a matter of playing time. If you take 34 plus minutes from Vooch out of this lineup, and they haven't shown an inclination to give those minutes to Lauri Markkanen, it's pretty hard to see how Young doesn't get back to like 30 minutes.
All right, 2 games to go here. Hit that thumbs up. Show some love as we come down the home stretch here. Only what? Man, like 12, 13% of people watching this show have hit the like button. YouTube has removed the downvote button on a lot of everything I watch. Like not on ours. You can still hit it. If you hate this video, hit the dislike button twice. You got to do it twice. But a lot of them, they removed it entirely. So you can hit it, but it doesn't show how many downvotes there are. Sign of the times, Adam.
Yep.
What did I say?
Something about downvoting and hitting it twice and YouTube.
Denver and the LA Lakers. One day you'll learn. Denver and the LA Lakers No LeBron James, 5-point dogs at home, 214 total, but we'll start it with the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic. Michael Porter Jr. has filled in very admirably from a usage standpoint since Jamal Murray went down. Anybody you like here against the Lakers, who also will be missing Dennis Schroeder?
Yeah, I like Nikola Jokic. I don't think that should come as a surprise, but he's averaging like 1.7 to 1.75 DraftKings points per minute in his games without Murray. He's like the closest thing that you have to Russell Westbrook as far as just contributing massive numbers across the board. Not quite the assist numbers that you're getting from Westbrook, but a 42% assist percentage in his games since Aaron Gordon joined the team and without Jamal Murray. Usage rate around 30%, rebounding percentage around 18%, which is like the same as Westbrook, which is ridiculous. But you're getting like 34, 35 minutes in competitive games. So not quite as many minutes, but a little bit more per minute productivity than Westbrook. Jokic, I think, is always one of the top plays. He's up there with Westbrook, where every slate that they're on, there's nothing negative to say about them. Beyond Jokic, I think that there's a couple spots you can look to, but they don't stand out nearly as much. Michael Porter Jr., I think, is priced appropriately. He has averaged about 36 minutes per game without Jamal Murray. He's averaged about 1.16 DraftKings points per minute. So that's good production. And in competitive games, when he's playing well, you've seen him get 40 minutes. So he does have a very high ceiling here. I just wouldn't say he's really underpriced for his average production. Campazzo, Dozier, kind of in that same boat. You have a really cheap price tag on FanDuel for Aaron Gordon. We know he hasn't been very productive, around 0.8 fantasy points per minute since joining the Nuggets. But they're all guys, that if you're playing a lot of lineups, that they'll fit in. But the guys that I'd be prioritizing, or Jokic is the guy I'd be prioritizing. Porter would be the other guy that I feel reasonably good about. And then Dozier, Campazzo, Gordon are just sort of like, if they're there, whatever.
Okay. So now we've got the LeBron James Lakers. Did you see that foul that he acted like his head got split wide open on? Yeah.
He got hit in the temple by that nasty elbow.
Yeah. The elbow that didn't actually hit him in the temple.
Yeah.
It's so funny. He's out though. Anthony Davis is probable. Dennis Schroeder in COVID-19 protocol is out. And then everyone else who has an injury tag every single day for Frank Vogel is probable. Give me your best rundown of this Lakers squad tonight against Denver, Suns, LeBron James, and Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah, so it's not a very appealing game in terms of pace. These are two slow teams. The Lakers are solid defensively. Denver not as solid defensively. But with LeBron and Schroeder out, there is some value here. Alex Caruso at 3K flat on DraftKings, 3,700 on FanDuel. I think, him and potentially Taj Gibson are like the two 3K plays that we have right now. Caruso played like 27 minutes or so yesterday. You could get, around 30 here probably without Schroeder and James. He's averaged about 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute over the last 2 years, about 0.72 fantasy points per minute in his 3 starts. So, that's pretty much what you can expect from Caruso. But if you get 30 minutes or so at 3K, that's a good value. Anthony Davis has not played very well recently. He does clearly have a very high ceiling without LeBron. Like, it's going to just be one of these games where everyone is just tired of Anthony Davis. He's going to go score 65. So it's an okay tournament option, assuming a lot of ownership goes to Sabonis and goes to Williamson and those guys. But I would also put those guys ahead of Davis in terms of guys that I would like to have in my lineup. One other piece I'm very interested in here is Kyle Kuzma. He played 36 minutes off the bench yesterday. I'm assuming he starts in place of LeBron. I think you get a Caruso, Caldwell Pope, Kuzma, Davis, Drummond starting lineup. If that's the case, I would assume you're getting another 34 to 36 minutes. His salary's come down a bit. He should produce between 0.9 and 1 fantasy points per minute on average with LeBron out. So I think that's a pretty decent value. If you're playing larger field tournaments and you're trying to, take some chances on other guys, KCP is never exciting, but he should play 30 to 33 minutes here. He's pretty cheap. And then one guy that I think you could use as leverage against Alex Caruso, like Caruso is the guy that I would play in cash. Caruso is the guy I would assume is in my first tournament lineups. But if you're saying, a lot of people are going to roster Alex Caruso, what if Alex Caruso only plays 24 minutes? Who benefits? Taylor Horton-Tucker, we know produces at a high rate. We know he can handle the ball. We know he's capable of being in the closing lineup at a variety of positions. He's 4,100 on DraftKings, should have much, much lower ownership than Caruso. That's a spot where, if you are looking to take a risk, I think there is at least some upside there.
Top options.
Alex Caruso for value. I like Kuzma. And then, I like Anthony Davis. It's just I don't like him more than I like Sabonis. And I don't like him more than I like Sabonis. I like him similarly to Zion.
Okay. I'm thinking we close it out with San Antonio and the Utah Jazz. Excuse me. San Antonio gets pretty much everybody back today after being down everyone yesterday. Murray, DeRozan, Pirtle, everyone's going to be in the rotation tonight facing the Utah Jazz. You tell me, what do we do here We got about a minute and a half to go. Spurs 7-point dogs, 220 total, second of a back-to-back.
Yeah, I don't have much from the Spurs. I mean, it's not really a back-to-back because they all sat out yesterday. But
yeah, sure.
It's a tough matchup with Utah. There's a ton of plays I really like on this slate. DeMar DeRozan, DeJounte Murray, Jakob Poeltl are all guys that, if they end up in a lineup, fine. They're reasonably priced. They are capable of having a big game, but I just wouldn't put the chances of them having a big game nearly as high as a lot of other plays. So they're not really I'm not going to recommend playing them.
All right, then what about Utah and the, in my opinion, overpriced once again, Jordan Clarkson and company?
Yeah, I think Clarkson's overpriced. Well, I think Clarkson's fairly priced on DraftKings. He's underpriced on Fanduel still, I think, at 6,500. Same really can be said for Ingles, who's 6,600 on DraftKings, but only 5,700 on Fanduel. They're both about a fantasy point per minute player. You can expect about 34 minutes from Ingles. You can expect about 32 from Clarkson if the game's competitive. And then you also have Gobert, who is a little below 8K on Fanduel, makes him look like a pretty good value. 8,800 on DraftKings is okay, but not nearly as good as it is on Fanduel. Plus, the opportunity cost at center got a little bit higher now that you have the Hernan Gomez value. Those are the three guys that I'd be most interested in. Bogdanovich is up to almost 7K on DraftKings, so that's going to be pretty tough to get to, even with the increased usage. 6,200 on Fanduel, not great either. If you need the value, Niang played 24 minutes last game in a competitive game, but he also didn't play very well. If he's playing well, I think you can get 28 minutes from him, but I don't really think you need that value on this slate all that much.
Okay. Would you say on either side of this game there are priorities? Because you could, of course, talk about Joe Ingles, Rudy Gobert. It sounds like you like Jordan Clarkson a little bit more than I do. I just don't necessarily want to pay for him, particularly on DraftKings. Would you say there are any top options from either side of this game as we wrap it up?
I wouldn't say priorities on DraftKings in the sense of guys that I'd be expecting it to get tons of. On FanDuel, I think you could say Gobert, Clarkson, and Ingles are all priorities at their price points.
All right. Hey, thanks for watching. As always, we appreciate you guys and girls. Thanks for hanging out. Good luck tonight. Stick around. Josh and Greg got you covered live before lock. Any news that breaks, they are on it. Hey, Jordan, thanks for producing in your new waterfront crib, brother. You hear the music playing. That's our sign to go. We'll see you back here tomorrow. It's the Deeper Dive presented by OddsShopper.com.
Wait, are you the only one that's not waterfront now, Lough?
Yeah. Well, I am. It just rained, so I got shit out.
I'm feeling scrappy. I've got a lot of energy right now. I was at the gym earlier, so I don't feel like a garbage human today. And we are live. Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. It is Monday, May 3rd. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Greg Ehrenberg. We are brought to you by OddsShopper, the best place to go if you need to shop around and get your lines. But there's one place we need to start, and it's not with how you doing today. The question is this: what would be your thoughts if the NBA abolished the draft?
So meaning that players would just go pick wherever they sign, like the process would just be players finish college and go pick wherever they want?
Correct.
I think that the players would probably flock to like New York, LA, and I feel like it would be really hard.
More so than they already do?
Yes. I think it would be like, at least right now it's viable for teams like Oklahoma City to build like who has a brighter future right now than Oklahoma City, right? They're loaded for the future, but that kind of goes like what happens to all the draft picks they've stocked up?
Well, like obviously you couldn't enact this until you went through all of the draft obligations that existed. This would be like an 8-year plan. Do you think that a top prospect is going to sign to be a backup on a good team at less money?
Well, why would it be? It wouldn't. Would there still be like a rookie scaling, or they just sign wherever they want for whatever much money they get offered?
Whatever they could offer. So like the Lakers, for example, are obviously paying LeBron and AD, $40 million a year. They would not really be in the market for being able to sign, say, Cade Cunningham right now.
Maybe, although I don't know. I still think some of those guys would just go to those teams anyway. Because think about the landscape of college basketball,
really?
Right?
Okay.
Where, yeah. Like look at the landscape of college basketball, where there's a lot of players who, even though it might hurt their draft stock going forward, like they just all go to Kentucky because they want to play with their friends and be on as competitive of a team as possible. And we see them. That's also one of the reasons teams like Kentucky, I think a lot of their prospects get undervalued in the draft process because they go to a situation where they're getting less usage, maybe less playing time, and less of a role than if they went to I don't know, like SMU or some random school like that. But instead, they just rather go to a good team and go win. And a lot of these guys, like, look, here's the reality, right? $30 million is a lot. But you know what else is a lot of money? $15 million and hang out with your friends being on a really good team.
I don't know. What if you bring one of your friends to that team with you and you're still making that 30 million? Like, I think money talks a lot more here. And look, the upper echelon guy, let's just use Cade Cunningham as that example. He's going to sign with Lakers, Clippers, Miami, Knicks, Brooklyn, whichever one of those teams that are the elite of the elite that has the financial wherewithal to be able to do that year. Yes, they are going to be the pace car for all of this. I agree. We still have like 10 more dudes where I think that they get paid a lot more than most of the big market teams are going to be able to offer. Like if you only have the mid-level exception and somebody else is coming in with 15, I think you're getting the guy for 15, even if you're Oklahoma City, Orlando, whatever.
So I agree that's what a lot of guys would do. It's not what all of them would do. So there would definitely be some top prospects who are just like, yo, I want to go play with LeBron in LA, and it would build some like ridiculously loaded super teams.
Lofty, he can't let it go. You brought it up on the deeper dive, man. This is my first opportunity to bring it up to an outside party. So I didn't ask the question.
Okay, I didn't even know what this was apropos of. So that kind of makes more sense. I was like, was this a pre-existing conversation that I'm not aware of? But okay, that makes a lot more sense now.
All right. So, by the way, Moses Guthrie in chat said, what's the benefit for the league and its teams to get rid of the draft? I believe it would remove tanking because you would have no incentive to actively lose games any longer. There would be no incentive for being the worst team and getting the most ping pong balls. I don't like incentivizing losing.
But what's more exciting than tonight's Pistons Magic game?
Well, let's get into that right now. We don't have any news right now other than Kelly Oubre out for 2 more games. Andrew Wiggins still questionable. So let's start on the guard side here. What is standing out most to you for the guards? Guys that you think you'll be heavy on or guys that are picking up a lot of ownership that you don't quite believe in?
All right. So we did recently get a new run of ownership also. So that is something that I'm going to be taking a look at as we go along also. But hey, at least DraftKings more so, but still a strong value on Fanduel and DraftKings. I don't know how we stay away from our guy Alex Caruso on DK at the flat min today. We've got no LeBron James, no Dennis Schroeder. So I assume that Caruso maybe doesn't start at point guard, but at the very least, he's going to have to play a significant amount of minutes. So to me, Caruso, especially if you're playing cash games, is somebody really hard to get away from at the flat min.
Yeah, that price tag is crazy to me. Like, there are guys that don't play all that often that have higher prices than Caruso. How does he slip to 3K? Like, I'm not surprised that he's sub 4K. I just don't understand how he ends up being the flat minimum.
So I don't know if you've picked up on this, but one of the things, especially on DraftKings, that's kind of a hiccup in the pricing algorithm. If players miss games, it really fudges up everything for them. And oftentimes we've seen this happen on Fanduel and DraftKings. Like there could be a marquee player who misses a handful of time. They come back and just they're oddly priced at the minimum or something like that. And I think that Alex Caruso, the fact that he missed 2 games in a row, I think that that's something that then kind of lowers in the pricing algorithm. And then obviously the pricing came out before yesterday's game. He started, which is obviously really encouraging for our case for tonight's outlook. He didn't play particularly great yesterday, but I mean, still, there's going to be no LeBron James tonight. He played 26 minutes yesterday, scored 19 and a half DraftKings points. If that's like as bad of a game as he's going to have at min price, like the floor is fairly high for him, given the amount of minutes I expect him to play.
Yeah, he's an unquestioned great play today, as far as I'm concerned. 33K, like it doesn't even really matter what you project him for. And there's a ton of ceiling on that number. Like even if you're super pessimistic and you're like, I don't know, I think he gets 22 minutes and they work Wes Matthews back in and Ben McLemore picks up front. It's like, okay, well, there's still upside there and he's 3K. So I'm with you. I love Caruso today, particularly on DK. 3,700 on FanDuel. I kind of take it or leave it.
Yeah, so I mean, the difference on FanDuel is going to be obviously the positionality, but then also there's so many good pay up options at point guard on FanDuel. Russell Westbrook, Steph Curry in particular. So while I still think that Caruso's in play in FanDuel, it's not nearly the same play it is on DK, where he's cheaper and it's so much easier to fit him into lineups, and it doesn't come with the opportunity cost of losing out on guys like Curry and Westbrook.
Speaking of Curry and Westbrook, how you feeling about the pay up options at the point guard spot today? Russ looking good, Curry looking good, guys from Indiana potentially looking good at guard at least.
So, I mean, there's so much value here, especially on DraftKings with Caruso and now like Hernan Gomez being a viable option. But we just kind of pay up wherever we want. Like, I don't find it especially difficult to fit like Curry and Westbrook in some of the same lineups. So I'm overweight to the field on Steph. I'm overweight to the field on Russ. To me, Russ is never expensive, nor is he never owned enough. And given what we've seen recently from Westbrook's production, like I don't understand how he isn't somebody who just goes, like 50% owned on every slate at this point, because he never scores basically ever below 50 fantasy points. He scored over 50 fantasy points now on DraftKings in 21 of his last 22 games. He's had a triple-double in almost all of those games. So the floor is so high combined with the ceiling that it's really hard to play him and end up regretting it. He's had legitimately one bad game. I'm trying to remember. It was maybe against the Knicks or something like that. And other than that, just all the games are good.
I got to touch on 2 super chats that we got. First and foremost from Justin Swearingen that said, abolish the draft and secure the bag. I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. Take that money. And then where's that second one?
I don't agree.
You would if you were that guy trying to secure the bag instead of signing some stupid rookie contract. And then we got James said, what if teams could get relegated? Then they really wouldn't tank. So it's interesting. I would love going to the model that we see in soccer with promotion and relegation. 1, that would never happen. And 2, we just literally saw the best teams in the world try to go to that exact model where they could not be relegated out of the European Super League. Failed tremendously. People don't like when big business does things that's smart for big business. So that one is literally never going to happen, even though it does solve that problem.
By the way, just something else I thought about the draft too. So it secures the bag for the top few picks, but not necessarily the guys who are going to be picked like 10th in the draft. Like, because teams just run out of salary space at a certain point.
So at that point in time, I see it as a situation where that's where the small market teams are able to acquire maybe like a package of players. You send, you drop 10 million across 3 or 4 dudes on a rookie deal where you can bring them in as a group, have them work as a group. I think there's some viability there. Like I mentioned earlier today, like, oh, maybe you try to sign everybody that went to Duke that was coming out, that was projected to be a first round pick, or even the Knicks signed 3 dudes that went to Kentucky. like that is, they do that anyway, or at least they try to. Might make it a little bit easier. What else are you seeing at guard? We still got a little bit more time to touch on here. I'm looking at the ownership right now. Obviously, Caruso, Westbrook, Curry. We've touched on all of those guys. Okay, here's a question that I have to ask you, and I want to get your thoughts. I'm curious if you're in a different spot than me. How do you feel about Jordan Clarkson today?
So Jordan Clarkson, let's see, what is his latest ownership? He's all the way down to, all right, so he's at 11%. I'm overweight to the field on him on DraftKings at that ownership. On FanDuel, he is currently at 28%. So that's a wildly different play. Jordan Clarkson at 11% on DraftKings, because the upside is still really substantial for him, even with the price tag having gone up, because there's still no Mike Conley. There's still no Donovan Mitchell. And it's not like he's stopped taking shots in recent games. He's just not making any of them. But as long as he's still taking that many shots and the usage is still up for grabs, like I still think there's pretty substantial upside. So on DraftKings, I definitely think that he's worth going overweight to that 11% number, because I'm about double that right now.
Interesting. That's not what I was expecting. I think he's an actively like shocking play at that ownership number.
At 11%?
Yeah. Because I don't really know how he pays off 7,300 on a day with all of the value at the top.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way he does is if you look at the recent game, and also it's a little hard to project out his minutes because the Jazz have been in so many blowouts lately. But I mean, if you go back to at least the last game, right, he played 33 minutes and his usage rate's still over the last handful of games. Like he's pretty consistently right around a 30% usage rate. So the way he would do it is he finally starts making his shots because he's not hitting anything right now. So even if we were to put him at, and he's never going to be efficient, but still, I mean, recent games, he shot 6 of 18 from the field, 3 of 15 from the field, a 5 of 20, a 5 of 16. Like if he's going to make even 40% of his shots, the upside is really substantial given the amount of shots that he's taking.
Let's see who's around him. I want to get your thoughts. You know what? We're fine. It doesn't make a difference. Would you rather play him or DeJounte Murray today? Assuming DeJounte Murray is playing.
I have more exposure to Jordan Clarkson, so my answer is Jordan Clarkson.
I prefer DeJounte Murray in that scenario, but interesting. Maybe I'm underrating Jordan Clarkson a bit. Something I'm going to have to look at. We got another super chat from Abel Ramos that said all of Indy's Q tags are out. Appreciate that info, man. You did not have to send a super chat for that. That happened in the deeper dive, but I appreciate it otherwise. And then Darren Unger, Fanduel, Clarkson, Zion, Hernan Gomez, or THT, Wagner, and Jokic.
All right, let me pull up these names because it's hard to remember them off the top of my head. Clarkson, Zion, Hernan Gomez, or THT, Wagner. And that is going to be Clarkson, Zion, and Hernan Gomez for me.
I mean, I agree that it's Clarkson, Zion, Hernan Gomez at this point in time. I'm going to do whatever it is. Who can I get off of Clarkson for? I would just drop down to Josh Jackson and use the extra $1,300 elsewhere. That would be my intention.
So, I mean, I do have more exposure to Josh Jackson than I do to Clarkson. But I mean, also here, I'm just going to pull up. Here are Clarkson's rates for the year when we have Mitchell and Conley off the court. It's a 33.3% usage rate, and he scores over a fantasy point per minute. Like I said, the real mitigating factor right now is that he's not hitting any of his shots, and he's not, like I said, he's not going to be efficient, but he's certainly going to see a little bit of regression in his shooting numbers. And just given that he scores over a fantasy point per minute with those guys off the court, and that the Jazz need a win and do something. Like the Jazz are starting to drop in the standings. I think that one of the things we could see is Clarkson play a couple more minutes, especially if it's a competitive game, because a lot of their games lately have not been competitive.
I don't know if we see that increase in his shooting numbers. This has been his worst year shooting of his career on increased usage as well. And that's what's tripping me up a little bit. It seems like he's taking a couple extra shots each game and not doing it as efficiently. And that makes me a little nervous for this particular spot, because this is definitely the peak of increased usage games, but happy to be wrong in this one.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just been so bad in the last few games, like 6 of 18, 3 of 15, 5 of 20. Like, to me, he should at least be making somewhere in the neighborhood of 40% of his shots from the field. He's not even close to that right now.
No, it's been ultra rugged. Any other guards you want to touch on?
Let's see. So here's a question for you. On the high end, my preference is Westbrook over Steph Curry, at least on DraftKings. Fanduel, it's a little bit closer because of the price gap between the two, but yeah. All things being equal, or maybe I'll say Fanduel versus DraftKings, the two sites, who do you prefer between Westbrook and Curry?
So on DraftKings, it's unquestionably Westbrook. They're separated by $200. They're not even in the same ballpark as far as I'm concerned. On FanDuel, I completely agree. There's a $1,500 separation there. I do have Westbrook by a hair. Ownership would likely be a bit of a tiebreaker there, but I do still have Westbrook as the preferred option. Curry, though, in a great spot, does look fantastic today.
Bogdan Bogdanovic is available to play today.
Good. I was hoping that was the case. I didn't really want to deal with it otherwise. Orlando Magic starting lineup: Anthony Harris, Bacon, Wagner, Carter Jr. No surprises in that one at the very least, which is nice to see. Why is Steven Adams still showing up in this crunch for me? That does not make a lick of sense. No, I took him out. Did I accidentally take someone else's minutes out?
Did you take Hernan Gomez out?
No. I'm guessing I just didn't re-upload projections. This is the only thing that makes sense to me at this point. All right, final thoughts on guards.
So let's see. Who are the guys that I have a decent amount of exposure to? A Magic player that we have, we just went over the Magic starting lineup. Somebody who's not starting, but RJ Hampton is a value play, somebody who I have a little bit of interest in. We saw his minutes spike last game, and that's something of interest to me. He went from playing 20 minutes, 23 minutes, all the way up to 30 last game. And RJ Hampton, I'm not totally confident that he's going to get all the way up to 30 again, but the team is so shorthanded. They only have, 9 active players today: Brazdeikis, Randall, Harris, Hampton, Bacon, Wagner, Carter Jr., Bamba, and Cole Anthony. So if Hampton's going to play somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 minutes again at a cheap price, and also shooting guard and point guard eligibility on DraftKings, he's somebody that I like a little bit as a play. Just he helps me get to those studs more, because I have a lot of exposure to Westbrook, I have a lot of exposure to Curry, and I have a lot of exposure to Jokic also. And it's not hard to fit 2 stars in lineups today.
Not so much. There's clearly enough value out there. Schedule for the rest of the night is this. We don't have any shows after this. That's it. That's the end of the end of the day. So keep your eyes peeled for the slate starter, outlining tomorrow's stuff, and then process show 6:30 a.m. Eastern time. Plenty of pre-recorded video content popping up on the YouTube channel. You should be subscribing there, and subscribe to our podcast feeds. Any one of them, individual sports, the whole shebang. Anywhere you get your podcast, you can subscribe to the Awesemo.com podcast feeds. And if you don't want to hear me talk about the NBA and you're just an NHL guy, you're in luck. There's an NHL specific feed. You could just grab that and only listen to Jake give you the goods as he wins over and over and over again. Finally, some free premium content at Awesemo.com today. This one, the one that you guys are going to want the most. NBA player projections are free today. If you want to know exactly what's going on at Awesemo.com for the NBA projections, you are in luck. You could all access them right now. Just go to the website, Awesemo.com. Check it out. MLB main slate ownership projections, free today. If you're playing both sports tonight, because obviously you're not listening to us and then playing only baseball. That would be crazy. I mean, don't get me wrong. Greg and I are incredibly captivating for an hour, but it'd be weird to listen to a basketball show and not be playing basketball and only play baseball. Either way, ownership projections free. NHL player projections also free. I'm sure that they are dialed in by Jake and getting ready to win him more money and win you more money. And if you're using that Awesemo.com avatar, you can get a free month if you win or finish second or finish third in any GPP with at least 5,000 people. Cannot beat it. Bryson Henry, core 4 for a FanDuel GPP.
Let's see. So I think the easiest way to do it
I've got my 4 in front of me, so let's see if we're in agreement. How about that?
Okay. Here, I'll go over mine and we'll see if you agree or disagree as I go down my names.
Perfect.
Josh Jackson.
Absolutely number 1 to me.
Okay. Steph Curry.
He would not be in my first 4, but he's 6th, and I could change this by giving him an extra minute, So I don't have a problem with that answer.
Okay. Russell Westbrook.
He would be my number 2.
And Domantas Sabonis.
He would be my number 5. So I think we're both in the same ballpark. Rudy Gobert is my number 3, 7,800. Zion Williamson would be my number 4 at 9K. Basically, he and Sabonis are essentially tied. I like that Zion's $500 cheaper and Curry is not too far behind, but those are my top 6.
So I mean, it's not really an issue with Gobert himself, but it's hard for me to not consider Willy Hernan Gomez a pretty high priority play at center on both FanDuel and DraftKings tonight. And let me see if we have updated ownership on Hernan Gomez.
So I greatly prefer Rudy Gobert to Willy Hernan Gomez today, as I do for Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic.
All right, let's see what because the last ownership update did not have Hernan Gomez in it. Now we do. So Hernan Gomez now, he's
like, to
not
me, 5K is a lot.
So he's projected for 6% ownership on FanDuel right now. And Hernan Gomez numbers as a starter this year. I know he's averaging over 30 fantasy points as a starter.
I have him projected for 29.3 in 27 minutes.
I have him projected for over 30 fantasy points. And his numbers this year as a starter, he is playing 27 minutes per game, 30.3 DraftKings points in those minutes. So double numbers, 10.4 points, 11.6 rebounds. I think right around 30 fantasy points is a reasonable expectation for him. So at least on a points per dollar basis, I look at him as a really strong play at center.
Yeah, I think that he's a great value option. I think just the problem of only being able to roster one center on a slate that has Jokic, has Embiid in this particular matchup, has Rudy Gobert at a price tag that I'm a little surprised to see be as low as it is. The FanDuel fits him pretty well, given the extra point for blocks. And I feel like I'm missing another center here. No, I'm not. Just Embiid and Jokic. That raw point ceiling is big today on a day where I think we have a lot of value. I am also very, very high on Rudy Gobert today. So we'll see where that ends up. I don't want to disparage the Willie Hernan Gomez play because he is clearly probably the best point per dollar play at center today.
I would feel differently if he had more ownership, but I mean, we're looking at 6% on FanDuel right now in the latest update. And I mean, Gobert is popular, but I think it's about appropriate, right? Like, I don't think he's a bad play, but he's 22% owned. So the field's mostly there and they're just not on Hernan Gomez.
So I look at his question a little bit differently then. To me, Rudy Gobert is a core play to me. I think Willie Hernan Gomez is a fantastic GPP option because of his low ownership.
Yeah, that's reasonable. He's the center I have the most exposure to today.
Interesting. That's a very nice leverage play then. So I assume you're like 5 times the field, 4 or 5 times the field, something in that neighborhood.
Yeah, about 4x right now.
Okay, cool. Opposite Texo, top center options on DraftKings.
Oh, well, there we go. All right. So Jokic, I just mentioned Hernan Gomez. Those are my 2 favorites. And then there's just a bunch of guys with center eligibility that are in the mix for me, except the majority of my center exposure on DraftKings. The guys I have the most of are Hernan Gomez and Jokic. But like Mo Bamba, I have some shares of. Mo Wagner, still somebody who I like getting to. The price has gone up a little bit, so not the same priority play it was on other slates. Draymond Green I have exposure to at center. Domantas Sabonis. Also, a lot of these guys, they have multiple positional eligibility, so that's something else that helps them out. But the best ones to me are Hernan Gomez and Jokic. You
didn't name my top 2, which is funny to me. And one of them, I think, is probably just a technicality. I think Taj Gibson is going to be absolutely incredible if he ends up actually being the center at 3,100 on DK. We don't know Nerlens Noel's status officially yet. I have left Nerlens Noel out all day, so I am still treating Taj Gibson like he's the starting center for the Knicks. That is the one with the technicality. Yeah, that's reasonable. I have Noel in right now, so that obviously makes Gibson non-play. But I totally agree with you. If Noel gets ruled out, then Gibson immediately becomes a really strong value play. And he wouldn't be the same value play if he was center only, but the fact that he also has the power forward eligibility is what really makes him blow up. And then I could be like wildly high on this guy, but I don't think that I am. He's averaged 1.07 fantasy points per minute over the last 30 days. I am projecting him for 1.02 in the biggest pace up spot on the day. What are your thoughts on O'Shea Brissett? He's very expensive. He's not. Let's see. Do I have any exposure to Brissett? I have him in a couple lineups, but nothing really significant. It's just the price increase is so steep to me, and I still don't know ultimately how he's going to fit alongside Sabonis now that Sabonis is back in full capacity. I understand. I'm surprised he pops as much as he does. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that his sample size is a bit smaller, so his error bars end up being a little bit bigger. And I don't necessarily know if that's like the proper way to process that sort of information, but I might have to add in a little bit more regression, but he is popping up pretty aggressively for me. So here's something to talk about from the same team. I like Doug McDermott a lot today. And at least in the latest ownership update, we got McDermott is only 4% owned on FanDuel. He's very popular on DraftKings, but the ownership on FanDuel all the way down at
like I said, 4%. We look at his minutes last game, and it doesn't really tell the full story, right? Because he started, he played 27 minutes. Everybody's out again, except there was so far from a competitive game that who knows how many minutes he plays if that game ends up being closer. Because the final, like that game was decided by what, 50 points?
Yeah, I mean, it was over at tip-off.
Yeah, basically. But this is a much more important game against the Wizards for a number of reasons. Number one, it's going to, in almost all likelihood, it's going to be decided by a margin less than by the way, the game is decided by, the final score is 152-95. Doug McDermott played 27 minutes, had 31 real-life points in that game. So a couple things. Number one, he's not going to shoot that well again, but he's probably going to play more minutes in this game also. It's also a really favorable matchup against the Wizards. Like you said, some of the same reasons you like Brissett, really strong pace-up spot. But then also the reasons that I think we could see the starters play really big minutes in this game. This is a really important game for seeding, and a game that these two teams could potentially be playing each other in the first round of the play-in. And this is pretty important implications potentially for home court in that game. So looking at a game with a 246.5 point total where the Pacers are shorthanded and McDermott could have to play extended minutes.
I am with you on the McBuckets love. A little bit less so on FanDuel just because of the price tag. It's not ideal at 4,800. At 4K, I gave McDermott 30 minutes, even if he is just a 0.8 guy today. He's been playing a little bit better than that. The pace up spot, I'm expecting some free looks. McDermott, great shooter. So I completely agree with you. I like him. To me, he's my third favorite play on DraftKings on Indiana, behind very clearly Sabonis and, as I mentioned before, O'Shea Brissett.
I can't get behind Brissett at his salary going up, and I could be wrong. Also, it's hard to know what to make of him. He's obviously been terrific lately, even on points per minute basis, and they still are shorthanded. But Sabonis being back, I think ultimately is going to change a lot.
39.6, 36, and 40. That's the minutes that he's played in the last 3 games. 40, including a game with Domantas Sabonis. Now, obviously, he's playing a little bit extra, but I would expect him to play. If this game is competitive, I expect him to play every normal rotation and play 36 minutes. If it's not competitive, I think he might play 40 anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that last game, right? They're playing the Thunder, and like it was just a shellacking. The game is not even remotely competitive, and it's kind of nice when you get a guy who it's like, hey, Brissett, he's kind of an unknown quantity, and they're like, you know what he is for us? He's a starter, he's a core rotation place, and we even play him in garbage time. So that is a nice, that is kind of a nice designation that he has in the rotation for them. Because, yeah, like you said, 40 minutes last game in a game that was decided by a gazillion points.
Russell Westbrook, Howell Neto, Bradley Beal, Rui Hachimura, Alex Len starting for the Washington Wizards tonight. Any thoughts?
Russell Westbrook is a good fantasy play.
Yeah, there it is. A couple more super chat questions. This one from James Hood. Get ready. 3v3.
Ooh, I'll pull it up then.
Yeah. Trae Young, DeMar DeRozan, Danny Green, Steph, LeVert, and Rui. I think this one's really easy.
That is Steph, LeVert, and Rui.
It is indeed. I would rather have all 3 guys in the other lineup in comparison to the other 3 guys. I would rather have Steph over Trae, LeVert over DeRozan, and Rui over Danny Green. Yep,
I do not disagree.
I'm Tulsa Dog. I'm not going to answer or ask that question, but I appreciate your super chat nonetheless. And Noah with the FanDuel GPP question: Steph and Mo Wagner or Sabonis and Killian Hayes?
That is Steph and Wagner for me.
Same. We're on the same page today. Ooh, 544 likes. I've been a little lax. Guys, we have 2,900 people in here right now. I have not asked yet, so I'm going to do it now. If you guys could hit that thumbs up, I would be very happy. It helps us out a ton. And the more we get now, the more I look better to everyone else in comparison to Laffy's bad job of getting them just an hour earlier. So please hit that thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. That one out actually helps us out a ton. The bigger we get, the more subscribers we get, the more content we can bring to you on this YouTube channel, which, by the way, I might add, it is all free. So I think it's kind of the least you guys can do. Hit the notification bell too, so you know, never miss when it starts. Look at that number climb. I love it. Yeah, and your boy, the bot, really big fan of George Mikan and Rick Smits. That's fun stuff.
Oh, nice. I'm going to watch them tonight now.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be good. Any other thoughts on forwards? I don't even know if I asked you that question before because we got into a ton of super chat stuff. So Talk to me about any forwards that you have not mentioned yet that you want to mention.
All right. So talked about him. Kyle Kuzma.
Okay.
This Lakers situation is kind of a disaster for a lot of reasons. First of all, obviously it's suboptimal that LeBron James is already missing games again. I don't think Anthony Davis is healthy either. He's been miserable since coming back from his Achilles injury. And
are we really going to do this? Miserable? Is that the word we're going to use? 1.2 fantasy points per minute. Why are we acting like he's out there playing like he's Rui?
So first of all, relative to Anthony Davis, right? Everything is within the realm of what our expectations for him. And it's not just the fantasy production being down. Like, he can't move on defense right now. Dudes are running around him. And it's a big concern going into the playoffs. The Lakers, potentially in the play-in game, LeBron's already complaining about that being a potential outcome. They have a brutal schedule to finish the year. And I don't think that, I mean, obviously LeBron isn't ready to play because he's not playing tonight, but that hasn't gone well so far. Anthony Davis, to me, doesn't look healthy right now. So anyway, Kyle Kuzma on the tail end of a back-to-back. I'm concerned that Anthony Davis, how many minutes he actually ends up playing in this spot. And I think we could see Kyle Kuzma take a little bit of an uptick in playing time with this being the tail end of a back-to-back, because long-term, they don't care about Kyle Kuzma's health, right? They want to protect LeBron James. They want to protect Anthony Davis. So especially if this game ends up getting maybe a little out of hand, which I don't think is the most likely scenario, but still, I think that Kyle Kuzma is somebody who could get some extra run today.
I'm with you. He was looking really good, much better than I was expecting him to look after I gave him a little bit of a minutes bump. But I have him right around Talen Horton-Tucker on a overall basis on FanDuel at $1,200 more, like relative to salary, obviously. And then on DK, to me, he's the second best option on the Lakers and not that far behind relative to salary on Anthony Davis.
Do you like Anthony Davis again today?
Of course. I have to. I have to, especially at what I assume is probably comically low ownership.
So we talked about this the other day, right? And I think eventually Anthony Davis, I think, is going to get back to form. And it is something that ideally I would like to be ahead of the party than behind it. But I haven't gotten to the spot where I've been on Anthony Davis yet. And there are so many good pay-up options on the slate that today isn't going to be that day for me with Anthony Davis either. I'm also concerned with being the tail end of a back-to-back, a relatively difficult matchup against Denver. So there's going to be a spot where I'd like to get to Anthony Davis. It's just not today.
Looking over these two cash lineups, I'm going to give you a 2v2 for me right now. What do you think? I think it's a 2v2.
I like it.
Okay. Yeah, it is a 2v2. Steph Curry. This is a cash game question on FanDuel, obviously. Steph Curry and Mo Wagner, or TJ McConnell and Zion Williamson. LeVert, Sumner, McDermott, Brissett, Sabonis, starting lineup for the Pacers.
I'm going to go with TJ McConnell. To me, is so difficult to trust in a cash game type setting. I have no clue what to expect from his minutes today. I do think that he's a good GPP play. Not somebody I want to have like a ton of exposure to, but he's in my player pool. But I don't view TJ McConnell as being safe for cash games, even with the injuries that the Pacers are dealing with. And Steph Curry to me is a pretty high priority play, especially considering his ownership.
Okay. They are the number 1 and number 2 ranked lineups that I have, and they are separated by that 2v2. And so obviously, like, I don't have a big lean to it, at least as of right now. I do want to look at one thing quickly, see if I can sway you a little bit just for my own personal self. I'm waiting for this to load.
33% ownership for Steph Curry overall on the slate. And he's going to be somebody who I assume is going to be like 50-60% owned in cash games on FanDuel.
I do prefer the Curry piece when all is said and done, because I just think that Curry is more likely to be more popular than Zion in a cash scenario.
And then obviously it's the same game also, but if Curry's going to be that highly owned and it's just one of those nights, it's a Curry night. And by the way, 236.5 point total in that game. Like you could just be drawing dead like 6 minutes into that game. We realize like, oh, Steph Curry's hitting 11 3-pointers today. Yeah.
Yeah. I have them set those two lineups separated by, I don't want to miss it here, 1/10 of a fantasy point. It's just close. Like they're the exact same thing. It's super, super nuts to me how close they are. Guys, 724 likes, 2,900 people. You guys are the best. I'm not even going to ask you guys to hit that like button again, but I do need to at least mention what you guys should be doing if you're trying to bet on games, and that's you should be using OddsShopper, because the most important thing that you can do when trying to get a bet down is making sure that you're getting the best line that you possibly can. OddsShopper will help you do that. You can track your bets. You can get notifications when lines move in your direction if you want them. And you get the opportunity to see multiple sports books in one visual so that you know that you are getting the best of what you can do. And all you have to do is go to oddshopper.com. It's that simple. It's not even going to cost you anything. But if you are looking to bet at any of the major sports books that are available now, this is your spot to be. So go check out OddsShopper. We've got a couple more super chats coming in. Corey Winkler, would you recommend playing Westbrook and Curry in the same lineup with current value plays? Yes.
Yes. I'm not saying you have to, but they are two of my most rostered players on this slate.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to say it. That is not an absolute, but there is nothing wrong at all with having Westbrook and Steph Curry in the same lineup. And it should be a highly owned combination as far as I'm concerned.
I don't think I have a single lineup today that doesn't have at least one of them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Which is greater? Coming straight from Gene B. Kim, Thibodeau's love of Taj or Eric's love of chalk?
Oh, I mean, here's the deal, right? Here's the difference. Eric's love of chalk makes sense sometimes, right? There's some good chalk plays that Chalk Kent throws out there when he's wearing his glasses. Tom Thibodeau has no reason to like Taj Gibson at this point in his career. So therefore, like Eric's love of chalk, much more reasonable than Tom Thibodeau's love of Taj Gibson.
I think that is a very, very good answer. Why would you want to still like Taj at this point? I don't get it.
Because he's been with them since the beginning. Like that's also a bad reason to like somebody. It's like, no, you don't understand. I've been coaching this guy since the 90s. Therefore, he's still a viable NBA player for no other reason than he's been around for forever.
Yeah, it's like, you can't find any other guys that you really like that are like of an appropriate age.
Or also, why even? I mean, it was a bad draft pick anyway, but why even draft Obi Toppin if your idea is like, hey, you know what we have a lot of Taj Gibson to play off the bench. Like why even draft an old rookie?
That was a terrible pick the moment it happened, not even in hindsight. And it's looking even worse now that we're seeing what Tyrese Halliburton can do for a Sacramento team. So woof. We kind of already touched on it. We had back-to-back super chats for centers, FanDuel and Draftkings, but do you want to sum up your center thoughts?
Yeah. No, that is true because we had the super chat before, but I just ran a most recent update of my lineups and nothing's really changed. So Jokic and Hernan Gomez are the guys that I like the most. I think the difference is I have like Hernan Gomez and like a couple more lineups that I did before, but Jokic and Hernan Gomez, those are my favorite center options. Then the other guys who I said I have some exposure to also, at least an appreciable amount, Mo Wagner, I have some exposure to Mo Bamba, Draymond Green, Domantas Sabonis, a little bit of Isaiah Stewart in there. And those are the guys that I have picking up, like a decent amount of ownership to me, but it's definitely Jokic, Hernan Gomez. Those are the priority plays for me.
I don't really have much to disagree with. We have slightly different priority plays, but everybody you mentioned are clearly the top plays. To me, Rudy Gobert is the guy that I want the most, at least from a FanDuel sense. He's the guy that I have my most focus on. If we're talking about legitimate centers, like proper centers on DK, Jokic is at the top of the heap for me.
Yep. And then also, 18% projected ownership for Jokic right now. That's also a number that I think is a little bit too low. Like it's not crazy to me to be overweight to Westbrook, Curry, and Jokic. Like you don't even have to really prioritize one guy over the other. To me, it's like, hey, all of them. And then I'm just mixing in a bunch of value plays.
6:43 Eastern time. We have 17 minutes to go until lock. I think we're set up pretty well to just start taking a bunch of questions. I don't have anything else to ask you right now. Is there anything you feel like you've missed that you wanted to talk about for today?
Let's see. Let me look over my exposures and if there's anybody that really stands out. No, like everybody who I have more than 20% exposure to, we've talked about at this point.
Perfect. Well, then we know where we're at. Let's get your questions in. Premium Slack. Ask your questions. YouTube chat. Ask your questions. We're going to hit on the best ones as much as we can. Rip Racks, Fanduel Cash, Josh Jackson and Brandon Ingram, or Levert and Ingles?
So those, can you read those names to me one more time?
Josh Jackson and Ingram, Levert and Ingles.
Josh Jackson, because he's in one of the combinations.
Yep. Yeah. Josh Jackson is probably the best play on FanDuel today, just because of the way the position is set up.
And especially for cash games, like he's going to be like 80% owned in cash. Like you have to play him in FanDuel cash.
Yeah. He is the most owned play on FanDuel by quite a large margin. And that is only going to go up in cash games, not just like in general.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We got another one from Soul Dope. So I assume this is like a 6v6. Just kidding, man. Sorry. For FanDuel, do you think it's viable to play Sabonis, Zion, Curry, and Russ with min guys filled in? Only playing a couple of lines, and it's hard deciding between Zion and Sabonis.
That seems
I can tell you what my best lineup is with those four guys.
It seems like all four of them could present some salary cap issues, but that's just off the top of my head.
All right. I'm going to lock them, and I'm going to see what my number one lineup is with those three guys. I think that could be an interesting exercise. Giving away the nuts here.
And then I'm interested to see how many fantasy points less that is than your actual optimal lineup.
I'll check them both. So I don't think we're going to like this lineup all that much. My optimal lineup with those four guys locked. Obviously, Russ, Curry, Sabonis, Williamson locked. THT, Grayson Allen, Kyle Anderson, Rui Hachimura, Kevon Looney. There's not a lot that I like there. Grayson Allen in particular. But 327.7 is what that has as a projection. My literal optimal is at 339.4. So we're giving up 11.5 points.
Yeah, it's actually, I thought it was going to be a bigger drop off. I still don't like the lineup, but I thought it was going to be a more significant drop off than that.
I don't really like it because of the Looney piece more than anything. I did get a Willie Hernan Gomez one that popped up with Danny Green, Rui, Grayson Allen, and THT again, which is a little bit better.
I'm never a Danny Green guy though. Like if a bunch of guys are out, fine, that's reasonable. But when we have the core piece of the Sixers together, it's just really hard to see any legitimate upside in Danny Green unless it's game where like, oh, he went 6 for 6 from 3 and walked into 3 steals. But like that happens to him like once every 6 weeks.
Pistons lineup. They will start Killian Hayes, Hamidou Diallo, Sadiq Bey, Sekou Doumbouya, Isaiah Stewart.
Well, time to change everything then. Like that's massive for a game that doesn't matter. That matters a lot.
Does it?
Yeah, because I mean, no Josh Jackson starting. Like he's such a highly owned player for me right now, and I have to decrease his minutes now.
Yeah, I agree. Look, sorry, I didn't mean to say like it was not going to be going down because obviously it was. I still think he's probably like at 28 minutes instead of the 32 that I gave him before. And I don't think that Hamidou Diallo is like long for this entire game.
Let's see. No, I agree. I don't think that Diallo is going to play a ton, but it's also been so long since we've seen Josh Jackson come off the bench, and he wasn't playing all that many minutes the last time he came off the bench. So I don't know that 28 is even a fair number for him. I think it should probably be closer to like 26.
Where are the minutes going? Do you think Diallo is going to get more than he normally does?
So let's see. Diallo, yes, because he usually comes off the bench and now he's starting. So Diallo, the last 3 games, 28 minutes, 21 minutes, 20 minutes. So I would think somewhere in the neighborhood of like 28, 29 minutes is probably fair for Diallo. Like he played 28 minutes last game and now he's starting. I expect that to probably go up a little bit or at least stay the same. Frank Jackson still gets minutes. Saban Lee gets minutes. Like it's a lot of bad players here, but it's a lot of guys who I think are going to play in the neighborhood of, like 26 to 30 minutes.
It's a tricky spot. It really is. I'm giving him 28 minutes. Josh Jackson, that is. which obviously nerfs him aggressively. Who do you prefer now, Hamidou Diallo or Josh Jackson?
Probably Hamidou Diallo, actually, just based on what I expect. Let's see, when does that game start? Also, that game starts? Jackson's going to be so much higher owned because people aren't going to like hurry to change their lineups. And Josh Jackson was projected for on FanDuel. He was projected for 41% ownership, and Diallo was projected for 4% ownership. Like Jackson's still going to be aggressively higher owned.
Yeah. Does he just absolutely nuke the second unit? And do you think that Diallo closes, or do you think that Jackson closes? Because I think that's the big piece here. To continue to play Jackson, you have to assume that he closes this game.
I don't think they know who's gonna close this game. There's so many factors here. Number one, they don't want to win. Number two, it's gonna depend on what's happening within the state of the game. Like if Diallo is legitimately playing well as a starter, he's gonna get more run, right? They're just gonna probably leave him out there. And if Josh Jackson plays well off the bench, they're just gonna leave him out there. But there's just given what the ownership is on Josh Jackson and how high it's going to be, there's certainly upside in him without a doubt, but it's just a number to me to be underweight to the field on now because this news came out 10 minutes before lock and people aren't going to adjust quick enough.
No, they are not. I'm really anxious to see his ownership in GPPs. I also think it's hilarious that 2 minutes ago we were like, hey, Josh Jackson's the best cash play on FanDuel today. And immediately the world was just like, now here's a big steaming dump on top of that take. Anthony Davis with the super chat. Oh my God, Josh Jackson not starting. Help. I think we just did that. Sunflower, is Lillard a strong GPP play on DK at 9,200? Strong would not be the word that I would use.
I think I have 5% Damian Lillard right now, and I'm updating all my lineups now for the Pistons news. But I mean, this isn't going to like aggressively change Damian Lillard for me. But no, he's not a strong play just because I think there's better guys to pay up for. I'm not outright fading him, like I said, but there's other guys I like way more. If you're playing one lineup, I wouldn't have Damian Lillard in it.
I'm with you. Andrew Wiggins will play today. And okay. Corey Randall with the super chat. Any love for Mo Wagner on DraftKings?
Yes.
Comma. I agree. Final utility spot, Steph, Russ, or Jokic? It'll be Russ for me.
Yes, Russ.
And look, those guys are what, like no worse than 25% to be the highest scorer out of that group. Like you might not want it to happen, but you're not going to be upset that you get any one of those guys. So
no,
those are really tricky questions, generally speaking.
Yeah, still Russ for me though.
Yep. We're on the same page. 8 minutes to go, guys. Get your lineups in if you don't have them in yet. Have we seen an update to ownership? 5 minutes ago, that's going to still have Josh Jackson at the top, right?
And I still think Josh Jackson's going to be super popular today. I'm playing a bunch of Diallo now in my lineup updates, and I have very, very limited amount of Josh Jackson. So I hope that Josh Jackson doesn't play a ton today. That's just what I think the right move is based on ownership.
Really, really changes that
everything.
That cash game outlook though on FanDuel more than anything else. Like, would you rather have? So you would go to Diallo now, right?
In cash games, I would still play Josh Jackson though, just because he has such substantial upside and he's going to be really popular. So I still think he makes sense for cash.
Yeah, we'll see if that ownership updates one last time. I'm still running a final crunch here to get an idea of where my data is. I'm going to add that in now and start running my final crunch, but I'm guessing we might get one more ownership update potentially.
My lineups don't even look remotely similar to what they did like 10 minutes ago.
What else is new and shows that you and I do together? One last time, guys, hit that like button. 2,800 viewers. We just hit 800 likes. Kevin, you're not getting me with this stuff, man. I know your gimmick. You're not making me say stuff that I used to make my librarian say. Can't do it, man. I don't like min-priced Mike. That much I can tell you. I don't play along with those jokes. I'm not Laffy. I've got respect.
He had one in. He left one for Spags and I earlier in the day. He didn't get me with it. I acknowledged he didn't get me, but then I read it anyway because I felt like, hey, he's giving us a super chat. He just wants me to read something silly. I had no problem with it.
I appreciate the super chat. I need him to be more creative. He's already used Mike Oxhard once before. So I'm all for the freshness.
Yeah, he used I am corny was the one he used this morning.
That would be true. That would be true.
Not incorrect.
James Johnson as a cheap small forward on DraftKings.
No. He is a cheap. If we're just throwing facts out there, the facts of the matter is that he is a cheap small forward on DraftKings, but not one that's making it into my lineups.
If not, who's a good pivot under 3,900?
Let's see. Who do I have the most of? So 3,900 on DraftKings. Any forward position?
Small forward is what is listed here. So
okay, so small forward under 3,900. All right. Let's see. Sort by projections, and 3,900 is the price range. Oh, there's going to be nobody I like, is there?
I don't know.
Oh, all right. So, I mean, the answer is technically Rudy Gay for me, but he is not somebody in my player pool.
Yeah. Maybe go a different direction then, Mr. Moneybags. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, you got 5 minutes to change everything.
Can you play O'Shea and Sabonis together in a DK single entry, or is that too much negative correlation? I mean, I don't care that much about negative correlation. That's just a lot of salary.
Yeah, I mean, I like Sabonis today. I think that Brissett is a little bit too expensive. Josh and I felt a little bit differently than that. So it's not the correlation between Sabonis and Brissett that worries me. It's just the price tag and Brissett himself.
Yeah, I agree. Like if I had 150 lineups, I assume that I would have some combination of those two guys in more than one lineup, but I wouldn't advocate for a lot of it. Not even close.
Yeah, especially if you're playing one lineup, that is that's not how I'd be building it.
Nope, not at all. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, Sunflower with the super chat. Josh Jackson and Sumner, or Killian Hayes and Dwayne Bacon. That's a DK GPP.
Let's see. Let me read it. If the thing would scroll, just read it to me because it's not. My computer isn't scrolling right now.
Josh Jackson and Sumner, Killian Hayes and Dwayne Bacon.
I don't like Bacon today. For tournaments, I don't like Josh Jackson because I assume he's just going to be wildly overowned at this point. It's still Josh Jackson and Sumner for me, though, even though I don't like Josh Jackson.
All right. I'm making my change to my lineup right now. Going with a different outlook today now than compared to what we had before, unfortunately. Just don't trust it,
As is always the case.
Yeah, it kind of is, right? Kind of is. But I'm going to get away from Josh Jackson now in cash. Might be a regret. We shall see. Not entirely sure. I'm okay with it, though. There are worse things in the world.
By the way, you might be happy to know that lowering my exposure to Josh Jackson on DraftKings did end up with me getting a few more Brissett lineups.
Hey, ownership update 21 seconds ago. Hamidou Diallo chalk on FanDuel.
Okay.
By a substantial amount.
Interesting.
40% now. The number one ranked player on the slate.
I would take I think if the news came out 20 minutes earlier than it did, that would for sure be the case. I'm not sure that amount of people are going to be able to make that swap. I could be wrong, though.
I am making an aggressive swap right now to my new cash lineup now that we have that updated ownership, because I think that is very, very important info. And then I'm going to
I have Diallo in a ton of my GPP lineups. I feel less good now that we just got that he's going to actually be really popular. I'm hoping that he's just not as popular as we expect, because I'm not changing this again 90 seconds before lock.
I am changing everything that I just did right now. 7 entries are in. Bang. Sometimes it feels so easy when you're not uploading as much and you're not like legit scrambling as hard as you possibly can to get your stuff in.
Let's see. What is the ownership on Josh Jackson now? Because I'm curious. Just updated. Let's see. DraftKings and FanDuel. Josh Jackson is currently, by the way, Diallo.
There's no chance. No chance. No chance.
He's going to be higher than that.
Yes, I agree.
We have them.
I would say that I think they pinch each other together. Like 30 and 10 seems a little bit more in the ballpark to me.
I think it's
going to be an interesting test case. We're about to find out,
Yeah, and the other thing too is it's so random sometimes with some of these situations. Sometimes the field reacts really quickly as injury news. Sometimes they just don't at all. And it's like there's sometimes after lock somebody gets scratched. I'm like, oh, for sure, people aren't going to be on like Metu tonight or something like that. And then the field does end up on them. I'm on Diallo right now, and I'm not on Josh Jackson. And I'm curious to see where the ownership actually is in a minute.
20 seconds to go until lock. If you don't have your lineups in, you should get them in right now. And then as you leave, please hit that like button. We're going to wait it out for 10 seconds. I'm going to refresh and try to see what that ownership is at right now, because I'm very, very curious. I ended up going to Diallo in cash. Once that ownership number came out, I kind of had to. Pretty happy with where I'm at. And I did one little pivot of Domantas Sabonis and Zion because I don't really trust either one of those two guys today. We are locked. So let me get to the big FanDuel contest right now and see how long it'll take me to find these guys. That's Frank Jackson. No. That's Rui. No.
All right.
Sabonis. Nope. I don't know why I'm looking at Sabonis. That's not who I'm looking for. The first Piston I got was Frank Jackson. That's hysterical. Sadiq Bey. All right. Josh Jackson, 21.
Okay. By the way, Diallo. Oh, this might not be the best indication. I just looked in the
Diallo 22.
All right. I'm happy. I'm very happy with Diallo over Josh Jackson right now. Let's see, at least in the $40 single entry on DraftKings, Diallo is 36% owned, but I don't know if that's necessarily the best indication of everything across the board. Yet Diallo 20% owned in the $4, and see if I can find a Josh Jackson lineup. I can't, so it is what it is.
There we go. Isaac with the final super chat of the night and a nice one. Thank you so much. He said, game time blunt on me. Spark it. Good luck tonight, everyone. Yeehaw. You give me yeehaw?
Yeehaw.
That's all we got, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Like button, subscribe, notification bell, all that good stuff. Slate Starter Podcast, The Process Show. And then we're right back at it for everything again tomorrow. It never stops. Constant content, guys. We're getting close to the NBA regular season end, but playoffs are going to be here and we're not going anywhere. So good luck tonight, everybody. We'll talk to you guys again tomorrow.